Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the best entitled people stories we've read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled people you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that for every thumbs up this video gets, she won't try to get anyone fired for an entire week. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My Karen sister demands to be my realtor. I am a real estate flipper. Early on in my career, I met up with Tina, a realtor of 25 plus years who showed me a home that I ended up not buying. We weirdly hit it off as a sort of mom/daughter vibe. She's about 30 years older than me, and I'm the same age as her daughter, and became sort of a mentor/mentee situation. Tina took me under her wing, taught me half of everything I know, found me deals, found me people to buy my fixed-up places, and basically taught me the ropes. She handles situations I'm still learning to handle, like when a foreclosure auction goes wrong. I'm definitely just starting to learn. Tina is very experienced. The problem: my younger sister, Penny, 26, female, is about to get her real estate license. We were having dinner with our dad, and our dad says to me how great it's going to be when Penny and I are working together. I gave him a confused look. Penny then piped up that once she got her license, she'd be handling all of my flips, purchases, and sales because she is family. I told her that if I was looking for my own house, sure, I would go with her. For my flips, I work with Tina exclusively because Tina had connections that I did not, such as discount flooring and other such things, and Tina got me a lot of business and sales. Cutting Tina out would basically remove at least 1/3 of my sales and end my discounts at a lot of places as friend of Tina, and I'm not willing to do that, especially in these kinds of times. Also, Tina will stop giving me real estate tips for good flip properties if she's not my realtor. Imagine how rude it would be for me to get a tip from her and then use my sister to buy the property. My sister and dad are now upset with me, and no amount of explaining can make them understand that this is a business decision, and I simply can't afford to burn this bridge. I told Tina what was going on, and Tina so very graciously offered to help mentor Penny, like she has been with me, and Penny was having none of it. Penny is so offended that I would continue to give my business to someone outside the family. I think I've done more than enough to help my sister here, but my father and sister think I'm the jerk. I feel like I might be the jerk because you are supposed to prioritize family. But then again, I feel like it's unreasonable for me to take a huge pay cut and loss of all my resources just so my sister can get sales, which again will be fewer due to Tina's clients not buying them. So, am I the jerk for not hiring my sister to replace Tina? Update. Plot twist. Working with me was not Penny's idea. Our father told her, of course I would hire her when she was out of school. We're family. Penny is a little bit naive and a little bit airheaded is the nicest word I can come up with here. I'm sorry, I love my sister, I promise. It's 1000% plausible to me that she simply just believed my father without coming to me about it. Penny then felt like I reneged on the deal to employ her when she brought it up so casually when we had dinner, as in her mind it was settled and done. She apologized, and we are both annoyed at our father, who caused this communication mess. I plan to talk with him when I'm less salty about it. Penny has said she's sorry for turning down the mentorship idea. I hadn't told Tina because I was hoping Penny would reconsider Tina's offer, and that she only said no because she was angry with me in the moment for breaking my word, but realized I had never given it in the first place, and it was all our father. I'm going to cautiously link Penny and Tina up, but I'm giving Tina a warning about Penny's potential behavior and a complete okay to cut things off if my sister behaves unacceptably. To the person that asked if my father had funded my business, no, but my late mother did. She left me and my sister a significant 25% each part of her assets, which was in the mid-6 figures for both of us. My dad got the rest, but he has plenty of his own already. He used to love helping us out before Mom passed, but stopped entirely when we received the inheritance from Mom because he said we didn't need any more help, which, fair enough. I've done well with my business. Penny has been smart with her share and invests in the stock market. Our dad has taught her. To everyone calling me an evil flipper, I specialize in foreclosures and homes nobody wants. Homes that can't even get renters. Homes you can't even get financing for because they're so bad. I fix them up and make them habitable homes again, when previously they are not fit for human living. If that's evil, okay. I've evilly expanded the amount of available housing. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you hire your sister to be your realtor or not? Please let us know. No, business and family usually don't mix very well. Just do your job and shut up. No problem. The software company I worked for got acquired. Some people were let go, some were added, and some teams and functions were restructured. Prior to acquisition, we had a multiple hats situation where you basically did whatever was in your capacity. Teams played to each other's strengths, and one person would generally take a client from the first demo right through the configuration, implementing and training phases of the software. Some of us had strengths in technical areas. Others had a decade plus in the client's subject matter. Clients would give us some feedback or wish lists. We'd talk amongst the team about how the functionality could be added or changed, make a functional mock-up, and then bring that to the developmental team for polish and integration into the production code. It worked wonderfully, like 100% positive feedback, and nothing broken when it went to production. We had a good rapport with the dev guys, and some of us were able to write queries or code portions that would save them from having to ask a billion subject matter questions. When we weren't dedicated to a task, we'd handle support calls. Clients would call up, receptionists learned who to pass things to based on clients and the nature of issues, and resolution was typically instantaneous unless the problem required research. Clients loved that, and we had the understanding that if we couldn't resolve their problem right away, it was because we needed to look into it. After the acquisition, the parent company reorganized things into a much more rigid, you have one job type of scenario. The trouble was, with the people they let go, I was the singular remaining source of a lot of the capacities we provided. It left me working with the sales, product improvement/concept, product evangelism, implementation, development, data conversion, and support teams. Initially, I didn't mind. Wasn't any different than my previous role. Things started nicely enough when the company's CEO genuinely asked, "Would you mind helping X team with Y project?" And he'd pick up my travel bar tabs and toss me a day off here and there. It was a fair exchange, and he treated it as though I was doing him a favor. But at some point, all these other departments expected, then demanded my time. Instead of people asking when I could help them on a project, I would just find time blocks added to my schedule for various things. A couple of times, I was supposed to be chairing these meetings and having things prepared, and no one even bothered to tell me. Around this same time, I noticed a lot of recommendations I made when asked for input were being overturned by people in new roles who had no idea what they were talking about. As in literally had no exposure to the subject matter and had never even seen the software, plus no programming/logic or database experience. So my input is demanded but also ignored. And this was causing more demands on my time when things were broken or didn't meet client expectation. Plus, the new dev team I was working with made every excuse not to act unless someone went and confirmed and fetched everything they needed. The external demands on my time had increased, and I had coincidentally hit a few walls with my actual job in that clients were unresponsive and couldn't get me the data or access I needed to complete tasks. But that didn't stop my boss from demanding documentation and results and documentation about the results. There was no such thing as waiting. It's your duty to call and harass the powerless client until whatever third party involved enables whatever we need. I was really unhappy in a job I had previously loved. Every day was worse than the last. And then I got my employee review. It was top notch, and yet I got the same cost of living raise as everyone else. It particularly burned me that the sales guys were getting commission on sales that I had made. At the original company, effort above and beyond was well rewarded. I doubled my starting salary in a few years' time for hard work. Now I was miserable, overdrawn, and got nothing for it. I was having daily arguments with my boss, who was completely indifferent to all my commitments and refused to understand that I couldn't compel third-party companies to do my timely bidding to get client data or access. Out of nowhere, I get a call from the head of data conversions department. He said a few of his people had noticed some high-level solutions to dev or data problems in the team chats come out of some random guy from implementation in no time. Then he was talking to a pre-existing client about converting a set of financial data from a legacy system I had converted some building, code, fire, planning, and police data from, and they asked if they could have me do it specifically because my conversion of their other data was flawless, and I granted them some change requests on the way through to make their lives easier. Simple changes to record-type names for easier identification, clip leading spaces or extra zeros so they could put reports in Excel, stuff like that. He said the client wouldn't stop gushing about me, and he was floored to hear that I had done the whole thing myself, where his team typically breaks the responsibilities between 5 or more people. He offered me a position on the spot, and I told him I was interested and I'd think about it. He told me I could start doing some part-time stuff with him a few hours a week if I wanted it that way. Then he told me he saw the BS I was dealing with and said he'd get the other departments off my plate. I liked him right away. My current boss then interrupted our call, seeing me talking to that guy on our in-house phone app, and demanded to know what I was wasting my time on. Then she proceeded to berate me about the open orders and my lack of documentation about their lack of progress. You got time to BS with him, but you can't call a client? I tried to tell her for the millionth time about all the expectations from the other departments, the obligations they leave beyond their allotted timeframes, the inability I have to force other companies to do things for us no matter how many times I tell the client. She told me, "I'm sorry with your excuses. Just do your job and shut up." I called the conversions head right back and asked how soon I could transfer to his department full-time. He said, "Yesterday. Man, this is such good news. I was just talking to assistant department manager, and he got excited when I said I think I got you part-time. Take the rest of the day off. Have a beer to celebrate. I'll handle the transfer and we'll see you in the morning." And that was that. I did as my new boss commanded and had a beer to celebrate. A wave of relief came over me after months of tension. The following day, I told the vampire departments and my previous boss in no uncertain terms that I was done helping them. It went unacknowledged, and they continued adding things to my calendar, so I deleted them, did my job, and shut up. Things got ugly. I'm not super talented or anything, but I was literally the only person they had for a lot of things, and things went to heck. Most of it requires institutional knowledge I had spent years acquiring, so they couldn't even hire someone to do the things. And rather than come ask me for help, people made demands and attacks, and I got flat out belligerent about it. In an email with the CEO CC'd, the support manager asked why I couldn't be bothered to help them anymore. I said, "For the same reason you can't be bothered to clean the toilets or recable the building. Not my job." Previous boss told me to just do my job and shut up. Take it up with her. The sales/evangelist guys tried to go over my head and asked my new boss if I could do some of their demos. He said, "Sure, if you come over here and do some of his conversions." Numbers tanked for the departments I was previously involved with, support in particular. They went from a 2-hour average resolution time to 8 days. Sales for my product line went down from 85% success to less than 25%. CEO reported that sales dropped over 60% from 85. Don't know the exact. Dev and product went from 100% customer satisfaction to 60. Implementations had been completely unable to install certain components, which led to at least one contact cancellation and demand for a refund. And in true storybook fashion, my previous boss's boss, the one who gave me my previous employee review and who was a childhood friend of the CEO, told me privately that the CEO noticed all the departments unfocused my chi stopped working for suddenly saw their worst numbers in company history. Weird. And asked, anything in particular that pushed the guy over the edge? Previous boss's boss explained that I was upset about the review/raise having nothing to do with the merit or effort, the demand from other departments, unrealistic and impossible expectations, and the idiotic requirements for documentation. So this year and going forward, there are 2 criteria for yearly raises: individual output and department output. No raises for people with negative performance numbers. Upon that announcement, some department heads up and quit, and others changed positions internally. Meanwhile, I've written a few utilities for my team that have saved thousands of hours of manual work. Our numbers are soaring where they were previously up and down, and my new boss is driving the whole bus full of our laughing butts all the way to the bank. Have you ever had a boss that you just couldn't stand? If so, what was wrong with them? Please let us know. You don't count as my boss or anything, but I can't stand you if that counts. Just let my kid take your kid's toys. It'll be easier for me. So my wife has a cousin we'll call Karen. Karen's mom and stepdad are very successful doctors with 40 acres of land and a beautiful house. Karen has always been a spoiled brat. So it's no surprise that Karen's goblin, Stacy, is also a spoiled brat. One day, I had just laid my daughter down for a nap when Karen called to ask if she could bring Stacy over for a playdate. My daughter was notorious for taking long naps, and I told them it wasn't the best time. Karen came over anyway, telling me at the door that they'll just wait for daughter to wake up. What? So they barge in before I can refuse them, and we make light conversation. Stacy busies herself with daughter's toys while I sit through Karen complaining about her latest fight with her baby daddy. After about 40 minutes of small talk, I finally say, well, I don't think daughter's waking up anytime soon, so maybe we should do this another day. Karen looked at her phone and shrugged. We've been here this long. We might as well wait. I insisted daughter would be sleeping for a while longer, and Stacy had started complaining about being hungry. I pushed the issue of them leaving before Karen could ask me to feed her kid. This is where the real trouble began. Stacy had been playing with a set of colorful ponies my daughter was very fond of, and when Karen told her to get ready to leave, Stacy continued to clutch the horses. Karen guided her to the door, horses in hand, and I had to stop them. Hey, sweetie, could you give me daughter's horses before you go? Stacy just held them tighter and turned away from me. I look at Karen, who is just watching the exchange with no intention of getting involved, so I continued to coax Stacy into giving the horses as nicely as I could. Stacy got more upset and turned further away from me the more I spoke, so I finally straightened up and gestured toward her while staring at Karen, silently demanding help. Karen just sighed and said, Stacy, could you leave daughter's toys here? But mommy, I like them. Karen looked at me and shrugged. I don't think she's gonna let them go. Maybe you should just get new ones for your daughter. I had to literally bite my tongue to keep from lashing out at Karen at that moment. Taking hold of the horses with one hand, I gently informed Stacy that I would be taking them. She yelled, "No!" and tried to tear them away from my grasp, but I firmly and smoothly took them from her arms. It wasn't a yank. I was trying to be nice this whole time, even though I wanted to swat that entitled brat and stick her nose in the corner. Stacy started wailing, and Karen glared at me, swooping her kid into her arms. She's going to be like this all the way home now. I just shrugged as Karen cooed at Stacy to get her to stop screaming. You should probably take her home then, before she wakes up my daughter. I was no longer being nice to Karen. You should let her keep the dang horses. Karen glared at me again, doing the dance of the desperate parent. I opened the door for her and gestured toward it. They belong to my daughter. You can get some for Stacy yourself. Karen left grumbling about me being a selfish jerk, with Stacy still screaming in her arms. Daughter slept for another hour, and in that time I got a phone call from my wife asking what had happened. Apparently, Karen texted the whole family that I had done something horrible and that I'm just a fat bully. My wife knew none of that was true and wanted the real story. Things have kind of smoothed over with her family now, but every time Karen tries her crap, little fights break out all over again because I'm the only one who will call her out. I have other stories if anyone is interested. What would you have done in this situation? Would you have let her keep the horses or not? Please let us know. No, and I wouldn't have let them return to my home either. Talk to my boss. This happened last weekend. While I was only involved from the sidelines, okay, I may have started it unintentionally. I was there through the whole thing. The cast. We've got me, we've got Tall Guy, and Karen. I went to my local blue big box store to pick up a few grocery items. Not a big trip, but it had to be done. Now I'm a short woman, 4'11", and it never ceases to amaze me that most of the things that I want or need are always on a top shelf designed for people who are at least 5'10", from my limited point of view. The only way that I can reach these items is if I have something long enough to rake it off the top shelf, or I use the shelves as a climbing wall. Considering that I'm not a lightweight by any stretch of the imagination, I don't try climbing in favor of keeping the shelves upright. I swung down an aisle and found what I was looking for on the top shelf. Since the item was in a glass bottle, raking it off the shelf seemed like a disaster waiting to happen. I stood there for several minutes trying to decide if this was something I could do without, when I spotted a very tall guy. Tall Guy had his own shopping cart, was not dressed like a store employee, jeans, black button-up shirt, and no blue vest, and was looking at his shopping list. My interest was in the fact that he was towering at around 6'3". I approached him. I'm sorry to bother you. Tall Guy had this look on his face like he's ready to say, I don't work here, lady. Tall Guy, yes? I tried making myself as meek and apologetic as I could so that he didn't think he had encountered one of those people. Me. Can I borrow your height to help me get something off the top shelf? Tall guy grinned, nodded, and asked what he could get for me. I pointed at the item, and without so much as a struggle, he retrieved it. I smiled politely and thanked him profusely for helping me. I put the item in my cart, and he started to walk away. Then she made her presence known. She was about 5'4" and had on heels that were easily 4 or 5 inches high, around 45 years old, and wore a blue sparkly dress that was at least 3 sizes too small and so short if she took a deep breath, we'd see her belly button. She honestly looked like she was going to a nightclub, not grocery shopping at 1:30 in the afternoon. Karen, now that you are finished with her, she said this while looking down at me as if I smelled like a week-old fish. You can get these for me. Karen attempted to hand Tall Guy her shopping list, but he put his hands up and backed up a bit. Tall Guy, I don't work here. I was only helping get something. Exactly. You helped her, and now you'll help me. I swear, she batted her eyelashes at him. Tall Guy, no, I helped her, and now I'm going to finish my own shopping. Karen rolled her eyes and tried to shove her list at him. I'm not stupid. Of course you work here. Why else would you? Again, she scrunched her face in disgust. Help her? Tall Guy, do you really believe that people who work for a living are only working to serve you? Karen couldn't decide if she should nod or shake her head. I could almost hear the gears in her brain strain for a response. It's your job to do what I tell you to do. Tall Guy, no, it's my job to do what my boss tells me to do. And not once in 14 years has my boss ever told me I had to do your shopping. Oh yes, it's your job. You work here, so you work for me, and I'm telling you to get these items on my list. Now! Tall Guy stepped closer to her, reached in his shirt pocket where he had his white clerical collar, snapped it on, and plastered on the biggest grin. In that case, you need to get down on your knees and talk to my boss. I think the two of you should have plenty to discuss. Karen's face went deathly white. She ran, took very fast shuffling steps out of the aisle. I just stood there with my mouth open. Tall Guy removed the clerical collar and tucked it back in his shirt pocket. Tall Guy saw my amazement and adoration of what he had just done and grinned. Oh, don't look so impressed. I'm not clergy. I do improv comedy with a small social group of friends. He patted his shirt pocket. This week's theme is church. I just came to get snacks on my way there. Me. Now I'm more impressed. I so want to be like you when I grow up. Tall Guy and I parted ways, and I didn't see him or Karen again. For some reason, however, I have this strange desire to watch stand-up comedy on TV. This name tag isn't just a cute accessory. Context. I work at the infamous Bullseye Mart. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the uniform there. Khaki pants, red shirt of some kind, name tag, closed-toe shoes. You get the idea. I'm lucky that the mart I work at is pretty chill on uniform. As long as the outer layer is 90% of some shade of red and the pants aren't ripped to high heaven and everything is work appropriate, we can wear whatever we want, including jeans. Incident. So it's a warm summer day at work and I'm wearing my coolest work appropriate attire. Lightest pair of jeans I have, sneakers, and a red and white striped t-shirt, and a name tag displaying my name and the store's logo on it. Since I'm working self-checkout that day, I'm also outfitted with the right equipment, namely a walkie-talkie, a small portable scanner, and keys that jingle every step I take. Note, the keys are the only thing slightly hard to spot just by looking at me. The walkie and scanner are pretty bulky. So for the last 5 minutes, I've been running every which way helping the small crowd that descended upon the self-scan lanes. So it might appear to the unobservant that I'm some clueless customer trying to find a certain candy bar on the lane or something. Finally, the line calms down enough and no one needs my immediate attention, so I walk over and stand next to the woman waiting in line for the self-scan. I exhale and enjoy my brief moment of peace when the woman, the Karen of the story, gives a surprised, "Wow!" Me, thinking she was talking about the long line we just had. I know, nice summer days bringing a big crowd, huh? Karen, I can't believe you just cut me. Me, confused, I didn't cut you. Yes, you did. I watched you walk over, grab a candy bar, and then stand in front of me. You cut me in line. I just stood there, confused, and no candy bar in hand. Then it clicked. Ma'am, I work here. Karen kinda scoffed. A likely story. I looked down at my bulky walkie and scanner and my name tag. Very likely. Karen rolled her eyes and walked away, muttering something about how rude some people can be. She then proceeded to get into the only other open lane, which had 3 people ahead of her. One looking like a fairly large order. I kinda shrug and share a people will be people look with the next guy in line. But it's not over yet. About 15 minutes later, the cashier, I'll call her Alia, waved me down. So I walked up to her side of the lane while still keeping an eye on the self-scan. Me, what's up, Alia? Alia, the machine won't take this lady's coupon. I glanced over and Karen and I lock eyes. She scoffs and rolls her eyes. I ignore her and glance at the coupon Alia's holding. Me, oh, here's the problem. The coupon's expired. Alia, just by a day though. Me, handing the coupon back to Alia. But we can still honor it. Just enter the price change manually and put the coupon with the others. I don't know how to do that. Karen, groaning. Then call someone over to show you how to do it and stop wasting my time. Me, I can show you. Alia, really? Karen, at the same time as Alia. You can? Me, yeah, it's pretty simple. So I show Alia how to enter a coupon manually and what to do with it afterwards. She thanks me, and I'm about to head back to my post when Karen looks at me absolutely flabbergasted. Wait, so you do work here? Me, slightly confused. Have for a couple years now. Why do you ask? You do work here? And that's not a Halloween costume? I just kind of stare at the woman, and Alia later told me I looked exactly like the one meme where the math is floating around a woman's head. Then I told the Karen, why would I be wearing a Halloween costume in the middle of July? Am I the jerk for auditioning for the role my friend really wanted? My 20 female friend, 20 female, is an aspiring actress. Over the last year, all of her auditions were online. However, things have started picking up lately. Last week, she had an in-person audition and I went with her. We had plans that day, so it was more convenient to tag along and hang out after. She was excited because this was a big company and it would give her a lot of exposure, good pay, etc. I was waiting for her outside when someone from the casting team came out and started chatting with me. They asked what I'm here for and if I'm interested in auditioning for an exciting role. My friends. At first, I was reluctant because I'm not into acting, so I had no interest. However, the person managed to convince me and promised great pay. So I said yes, but not because I genuinely believed I'd get the role. I just thought it would be a funny story to tell my friend. The audition itself was easy, and they were all super nice. I left and had no expectations I'd get the role. I mean, I don't have a portfolio, and my only acting experience was in a school production many years ago. I didn't try to hype up my experience, and I was very honest. When I told my friend about it, she jokingly said that I'm now her competition, so she has to watch out. Merely a couple of hours after we left, I received a call from the same guy with an offer. I was in shock and asked if he got the correct number. My friend was with me, and she was in even bigger shock. I honestly thought he miscalled me and wanted to speak to her because it seemed so ridiculous. She has far more acting experience and seemed confident about her audition. She got extremely angry and said that I purposely sabotaged her chances and that I'm not even interested in an acting career since I'm in STEM. She accused me of being a fake friend and evil. She was so angry that she asked me to drop her off at the nearest bus stop so she could go home. We had a huge argument the next day, and she said some pretty messed up things. She said that I was only hired because of what I look like, and that this type of preferential treatment is unfair to actors. She even said that I obviously did something with that guy to get the role, which, I haven't. So now my friends are split. Some are saying that I am the jerk for auditioning and lessening her chances of success. They said that this gig obviously meant a lot to her, and that I should have been supportive instead of derailing her career. Others are saying that I'm not a jerk whatsoever because I just did it for fun and had no serious expectations or ill intent. They said that it's ultimately up to the casting people to decide who they want and that I might have left a better impression. I rejected the offer. So, am I the jerk for what I did? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her friend? Please let us know. That friend doesn't sound like much of a friend to me. What are you doing running around with that Karen? Am I the jerk for feeding my nieces nothing but junk food for 3 days? I, 28 female, don't work Fridays, and my brother and his wife, both 34, wanted to spend a long weekend away at their beach house. So they asked me to watch their daughter, 5 and 7. I've never had the girls overnight before. My parents usually take them, but didn't feel safe because of lockdown. But they're both awesome and I enjoy them, so I said yes. They didn't pay me anything, but we're family and do favors for each other frequently, so I wasn't expecting it. I'm a vegan, and I've never had them over for more than one consecutive meal, and I've always just fed them easy junk food like a frozen pizza or boxed mac and cheese. I asked my brother what I should feed them this time, and he said they'd be fine just eating whatever I made for myself. Okay, fair enough. They got here Thursday evening after dinner. Friday morning, I made fruit smoothies, and they were happy with that. Lunchtime, I made them peanut butter and jelly. Dinner is where problems started, and predictably so, in my opinion. I made a chickpea quinoa dish, and the girls absolutely would not touch it. I wasn't about to force them to eat something that looked gross to them, so we went to a McDonald's drive-thru. The rest of my meals were going to be as weird and gross, their words. So the next morning, I gave them fruit smoothies for breakfast again, and then we went to the grocery store and I got chicken nuggets, mac and cheese, and frozen pizza. And that's what I fed them for the rest of their visit. They usually eat better than that. My brother and sister-in-law cook almost every night, but it's not like they never get that kind of food, which I think is an important detail here. The girls went home Sunday after dinner. I guess they told my brother they ate nothing but junk all weekend, because he called me this morning and started yelling at me about how I pumped them full of garbage all weekend, and now they're going to think they just get to go to McDonald's whenever they won't eat their dinner. I explained they really wouldn't eat the food I made myself, and he said I should have called him to ask what to do, or at the very least cook them something from scratch that was healthier. I got annoyed and said I did my best. A few days of junk food won't hurt them, and I'm not a short-order chef. We argued for a while longer until I eventually told him to find someone else to watch his kids next time, or at least prep their meals since he's so particular, and then I hung up. I don't have kids, and I really did my best. Am I the jerk? Am I the jerk for calling my fiancé entitled over a wedding planning dispute? I just got engaged to Anna, and we are in the very early stages of wedding planning. We can afford to pay for it ourselves, but it will be a small DIY wedding. I knew that my parents were going to offer to pay because I'm the last to get married, and they paid for both of my siblings. Anna and I have talked about my parents' money before and mutually decided that when they offer to buy us a house, not trying to be an entitled jerk, but they bought both of my siblings a house, we're going to decline because it comes with strings attached. My mom drops by whenever she wants. My mom makes executive parenting decisions for my sister and sister-in-law, and Anna and I don't want that. We had dinner with my parents recently, and my dad offered us $70,000 for the wedding. I saw Anna's eyes light up. I asked what the strings would be, and my dad said we would have to let my mom help plan, invite a certain number of their friends, make sure the food included things they liked, and if he was spending that sort of money, it wasn't just for us. His wife better be happy. I told Anna it was her call. Anna got upset and said no to the conditions, which I was fine with. Anna then said my parents are selfish, which, okay, fair enough. Then she started to beg for the $70,000 without the strings. My dad said that was out of the question. She kept it up, so I changed the subject. The next morning, she told me she was going to call my mom and try to convince her to drop the conditions. I told her that she was being entitled and they have the right to give conditions. I wouldn't personally do it, but I think it's their right. I told her that if she called my mom, it would embarrass me because of the entitledness. She now thinks I'm on their side, and she's deeply hurt that I used the word entitled because she prides herself on being a hard worker. Well, what do you think? Do you agree with OP or Anna? Please let us know. Pay $70,000 for my wedding, but have no say in how things go? Yeah, that totally makes sense. My mom ends up ruining the life of her ex-boss. This happened about 30-odd years ago, and my mother recounted it recently during a family dinner. So back in the 1990s, my mom worked for this big-time company, we'll call it Company W, as an accountant. Her boss, the head of finance, was a sleazy guy, and despite being semi-wealthy, it was a big company, and married with kids, he always tried to pick up women in the office. Eventually, after a few years, my mom, being the amazing accountant that she is, noticed small irregularities in several statements. I don't know the technical terms, but Mom realized that someone was embezzling the company's money for at least a couple decades. Concerned, she brought it up to the head of finance, who proceeded to demean her, call her names, botch her claim, and basically threatened to fire her if she brought it up again. My mother is not one to start crying and instead sought to prove him wrong. However, a couple of months later, head of finance brought in a new lady. Young, she was legit blonde, fresh out of college, to train under Mom. My mother instantly knew what this was and started putting out feelers for a new job. In the meanwhile, she trained the younger lady, who, to quote my mom, was not the brightest bulb. Now, Company W had a policy when an employee was going to be fired. If the employee was being fired for reasons other than rule breaking, violations, etc., they would be allowed to say that they quit to be able to give their week's notice and get pay, a fair policy. So one day, Mom was summoned by head of finance and told that he was firing her. She quickly counteracted and used the policy to her advantage, which angered head of finance, but he had to comply. The malicious compliance I know you're waiting for? Head of finance told my mother, in a rather rude way, that since she was going about it that way, she might as well do an exit interview. My mother literally had a light bulb moment and said to him that in that case, she would. To note, an exit interview is a formal way of leaving a job, akin to an interview for getting the job. It's a way for employees to share their experience and why they're leaving for records, including HR. You can see where this is going. So she was scheduled for the exit interview. When she went in, my mother had to, of course, bring in files relating to her work. I can't recall the exact reason other than it having to be relevant to her reason for leaving and show it to the interviewer. My mom brought in 3 large boxes of files, each one containing evidence of the embezzlement. She then presented it to the interviewer, who my mother told me was rather stunned, and proceeded to hand over all the evidence and proceed with her exit, including talking about the head of finance's reaction and how not long after, the new lady was brought in to replace her. Mom then left the company that day, got new employment, and moved on. It was a decade later that she learned what happened. My dad was a delivery driver at the time and actually made a delivery to Company W. While there, he talked with an employee, mentioned my mom had worked there and how she left, and the employee told him quite the juicy story. In the year following my mother's departure and interview, her evidence was brought to HR and the CEO, who ordered an internal investigation. Hidden cameras were placed in the accounting division. Every file made was screened and photocopied, tiny details scrutinized, and bank records triple-checked. I think you can see where this is going. Yep, the head of finance was embezzling from Company W. But it gets better. They got him, on camera, making out with a new lady inside the main office after hours. To add insult to injury, the cameras also caught him being cruel to those under him. But the biggest thing was still the embezzlement. Head of finance managed to, in over 30 years, steal over $1 million in Company W's earnings, from his days as a mere accountant and all through his promotions. Now, the exact way he was able to get that much overtime wasn't told to my dad. I doubt the employee knew, but he did know the fallout. Head of finance was summoned to the Big Cheese's office the day after the evidence was complied. And let's just say head of finance wished he had simply been fired. He was arrested for the embezzlement and for the misconduct, as well as a few other things my mom can't recall. The new lady who came in actually revealed that he had brought her in after starting to date her and even revealed to her what he was doing. Her job basically had been to help him cover it up so they could live the rich life. She didn't even know what exactly accounting was other than managing money. The perfect cover, so to speak. And if the now ex-head of finance thought being arrested and charged was bad enough, when his wife found out. The employee who told all of this to my dad wasn't present when the wife had come in while the ex-head of finance had been let out, but a friend of his had seen what had happened. She just went up, smacked the now ex-head of finance, screamed at him before saying she'll be seeing him in court for a divorce. While my dad couldn't learn what exactly happened next, what was clear was that the guy's life was ruined. And my mom, while not a vindictive person by any means, did feel somewhat joyful over the outcome. Lesson to be learned here: never mess with an accountant who actually knows what they're doing. Edit. Wow, this really blew up. I told my mom and she was in disbelief. Thanks everyone, you made her day. To clarify, the malicious compliance is that at the exit interview, my mother has to submit paperwork relating to why she left. So when the head of finance sarcastically told her she might as well go for it, she did, and presented all those files of evidence against him, stating why she left, including what he had said to her. This is not revenge because my mother never intended it to be. She actually didn't realize how deep it went or that he was such a scumbag. She simply did exactly as she was told. Another thing to clarify, the CEO got involved because 1, head of finance was leeching their funds for a long time, and 2, they had been friends according to mom. Yikes. Also, please note she didn't learn any of the fallout until a decade later, and from my dad, who was told by an employee from the company, and mom told me. If I did get something wrong, well, Telephone effect, anyone? If you found out your boss was doing shady stuff, would you report them or not? Please let us know. How shady are we talking about? Entitled Karen and Her Kids at Infinity War. Background. This happened back in 2018, so some of the details are a bit fuzzy. My brother, my dad, and I are huge Marvel fans. We've seen every movie within the opening week. Infinity War was the big movie everyone wanted to see, and getting tickets was hard. My dad scored them the day they went live, but they didn't have assigned seating, so it was first come, first serve. That day was Bring Your Kid to Work Day, and I left early to go get seats. The movie theater didn't start until 6, but they had the theater open as early as 3 p.m. We decided to get to the theater at around 3:30. There were other people there, just a group of 5 in the top row. We sat next to them and had a small conversation. We decided to eat before the movie started. At around 4, people started crowding into the theater. More seats filled in, and this woman and her kids in Marvel costumes show up. We hear her asking people to move so her kids could sit. I could barely hear it. Karen. Excuse me. Can I help you? Yes, you need to move. My kids have been waiting for this movie and want to sit at the top. I'm sorry, I've been here since 4, saving this seat. Fine. She ended up asking the same thing to everyone else in the top row. Then she came over to us. My brother and dad were in the bathroom and left their jackets to save the seats. I see her taking my dad's jacket, and I tell her that I'm saving those seats. Well, if they're not here, you can't save them. Me. They're in the bathroom, and we've been waiting here. Well, that's too bad. She sits down, and her kid starts screaming. Mommy, I want popcorn. I had popcorn as it was part of the meal I had. I was saving it for the movie. The entitled mom tries to reach over to me, grab my popcorn, and I slap her hand to get it out, and she starts screaming. She screams, "Assault!" Security tells her to calm down, and she demands free movie tickets. When she goes down to talk to the manager, my brother and my dad come back to their seats. By the time she comes back, the previews were playing. Why are you in my seats? Dad, these are our seats. We've been waiting since 3. We were here before you, in fact. Gets cut off. The guy who was here before us cut her off. Guy, he was here after us at 3:30. You can check the security camera. Entitled mom, that won't be necessary. The manager who was hearing the commotion checked the camera and saw that we were here. The lady was kicked out and was given seats for the next showing. When the movie lets out, I see her red and her kids were crying. I walk up to her and spoil the movie for her. I waved goodbye to her and I walked out of the theater. Speaking of Marvel, what's your favorite Marvel movie of all time? Please let us know. Oh, I love superhero movies. Kicked out because I listened to the school nurse instead of her. So my mom always treated me horribly. And she was very entitled. Like, I'm the mother, I am God. I'm gonna yell at my husband because he didn't give me money to get my nails done. Kind of entitled. I have numerous stories, but this is the one I remembered first, and I think it's one of the best examples of what she would do / mom God complex. This happened when I was a sophomore in high school. My voice / throat was starting to get rough, and I went to the nurse's office for some advice, and she said to gargle warm salt water 5 to 10 times, at least 3 times a day. The temperature is important. I've heard this from my friends too, so I figured it must work. It did. So when I got home, I say hi to my mom, who was in her room, and went to the kitchen to fill a glass of water. I debated whether I should just get some out of the sink, since it's fast, warm water, and I'm not drinking it anyway, so I asked my mom if it was a good idea. I remember the general outline vividly, but not the details, as this happened a long time ago. Me. Hey, should I just use the water from the tap or from the fridge? Entitled mom. Ew, no. Use the fridge. Why do you ask? Oh, well, my throat is scratchy and my voice is going, so everybody recommends gargling warm salt water to help. What? No, you gargle cold water. I was told warm water. Sweetie, I've been taking care of your sore throat since you were born, and I think I know better. Me. Well, yes, but can I at least try the warm at least? It wouldn't hurt. No, use cold water. Cold water is better. I know better. Me. Okay, but everyone's suggesting warm, so I want to try that at least. Please? She visibly starts getting upset and walks towards me, a little voice rising. I can clearly see at that point that she was drunk, so I started getting scared. OP, I am your mother, and I know what's best for my child. You're seriously gonna believe your friends over your own mother? Me. Well, the nurse said it too, But okay, fine, I'll use cold.
No, I can't believe you'd believe other people over me when I was the one who raised you. I was the one changing your diapers.
She starts going off on one of her tirades where she just rants and rages into the air, regardless if you're saying anything or not. Her voice was getting louder and louder till she was practically screaming. I'm trying to tell her I'll take it cold, but she's long past the point of rational thought and doesn't even register what I'm saying. I tell her I'm done talking and try to walk away, but she then proceeds to grab my hair and shove me through the door, screaming,
"How dare you treat me like this and disrespect me?"
She then slams the door. It's 5:30 p.m., 93 degrees in August in Florida, and I get stuck out there with nowhere to go for at least 3 hours. Can't call dad or friends because my phone was in my backpack in the house, and we live in a rural community, so not anyone close by. When those 3 hours were up, she thrusts open the door, rants about how crazy I was for sitting there, and then complains and wonders why I'm giving her the silent treatment like what transpired didn't happen. I have many more stories if anyone's interested, but that was the first one I remembered. Am I the jerk? I locked my entire alley up. Last year, I bought a house in my area. Really wonderful old red brick. When I was in the process of buying it, I discovered that the purchase also includes the entirety of the alley. I asked the realtor if this was true, and they said yes. I went to the courthouse to double check and confirmed it. So I buy the house. I meet some of the neighbors, and I made a joke about charging them rent to use my alley. They flipped out. I was not looking at starting a war, so I just kind of let it blow over. Then winter arrived, and the neighbors started demanding I have the alley plowed every time it snowed, because I own the alley and I'm responsible for it. One of them told me they would sue me if they slipped and fell in the alley. I don't believe they were joking. I paid a friend $25 a month to plow the alley every time it snowed just to keep them happy. But during this time, I was also talking with some people at the courthouse. As soon as the snow started to melt in my area, I got a hold of some local contractors and had them build a gate at the entrance of the alley that I keep locked. I've also posted trespass warning signs at the gate. It's all completely legal. I made sure of it before I did this. Now the neighbors are just livid. Basically everyone is calling me a jerk, including my family. One final note, I'm only here to settle a debate with my sister. Regardless if I'm the jerk or not, the alley isn't going to be opened up again. You don't threaten me with a good time. Edit. Alright, that's enough. I spent the last 10 hours responding to comments. I'd like to thank everyone who privately messaged me so they don't get in trouble with the mods. I love reading all of your nasty messages. For anyone who doesn't know any better, the alley has 2 garages that open to it. I would have figured most of you would realize an alley may have a garage. I guess not. I didn't intentionally leave that fact out, but after everyone started howling about it, I decided to wait until I was done here to edit the main post. I'll update if I ever get sued into oblivion. Lots of love. Well, what do you think? Do you agree with OP or with his neighbors? Please let us know.
Where on earth do you live to have such entitled neighbors?
Can't pay for gasoline? Pay $1,000 for repairs instead. This happened in the 90s, right after I had moved out of my dad's house after college. I was broke and in search of a job. My brother, who owns a local mechanic shop, helped me find a job and a place to live in the area. The place I lived was in a cramped trailer park, but I did have a small patch of grass that needed mowing. Also, the place had poor heating and cooling. I had to install my own window unit and use a kerosene heater for heat. Not a good idea, by the way, but it's what was available, and it was indoor rated surprisingly. My neighbors, who we'll call Josh and Anna again, are the type that have a nice expensive car despite not being able to afford power, food, etc. But who am I to judge? The car? A Ford Thunderbird Super Coupe. Round 1. It's getting springtime and my weeds are starting to grow, so I get a small power mower, a gas jug, and some gas. I mow my yard in about 5 minutes. Done. Next week I come out and my gas jug is empty. Well, crap. Round 2. It's week 2 of mowing season and I go get some gas. This time I get less, and before I put the jug up, I place a small handwritten note on it. Attention gas thief, contains water. No, it didn't really, but I was testing a theory. And yup, they stole the gas anyway. At this point, I still wasn't sure if it was actually them or not, but I was about to find out. Round 3. Mortality. It's now 4 weeks into mowing season. At this point, it's warmed up. My new shiny 220-volt AC unit is humming in the living room, and I no longer need my kerosene. I take my gas jug and kerosene jug, get some gas/Karo, mow my yard, put my gas jug just inside my door, and leave my very full, bright blue kerosene jug next to my mower. He took it. The fallout. Anyone who works on cars knows that a gasoline-powered engine will not run on kerosene. So yeah, he didn't make it much farther than the top of the hill. The best part is that the warranty didn't cover the damage done by using the wrong fuel, and to fix it, the tank had to be drained, the lines had to be drained, the filter changed, and new fuel injectors installed. Josh ended up paying my brother over $1,000 to fix the car. I think my favorite part was walking by Josh later with my empty kerosene jug, mumbling about why would someone steal my kerosene in warm weather. He never admitted he did it. He never stole my gas or kerosene again. Finally, he learned, or found a new victim. Entitled woman got fired from a pharmacy as a patient. We've got me. I just want my allergy pills. We've got entitled woman, second in line, mid-50s. We've got old lady waiting at the window, obvious Parkinson's patient. We've got RX, the pharmacist. Me, walking up to the pickup window to get my meds after work. Entitled woman, making impatient noises, talking to me.
You should probably come back later. I've been waiting for hours.
Me, no problem, I'm not in a hurry. Old lady on the verge of tears talking to pharmacist. I've been without my meds for a few days. There was an issue with my insurance. Please help me. RX, I talked to your doctor. We've got it taken care of. We can't get your regular medication. This one's cheaper, but we aren't going to charge you for it. It should help. Old lady, now crying, visibly shaking. Thank you so much. Old lady and RX talking about the new meds. Karen.
Oh my God. People are waiting. This is ridiculous.
More impatient noises. RX to old lady. Here's your meds. Let me know if anything doesn't seem right or if there are any side effects. Karen.
What the heck? Come on, this is ridiculous. Maybe you shouldn't get sick if you can't afford it.
Me. What? Karen.
She's holding up the line. This is ridiculous. I shouldn't have to wait at the walk-up window.
Old lady takes the bag with the meds, turns, loses her balance, and grabs the sign that says, keep 6 foot distance to balance herself. Oh, starts crying again. Karen.
You shouldn't be in public if you have to touch everything.
I take old lady by the arm and help her to her car. I'm vaccinated, not worried about it. Old lady. Thank you so much. It's been a hard few days. Me. No worries. I hope it gets better. Karen.
About time. Oh my God.
Steps up to the window. RX. I'm sorry. Your prescription isn't ready.
I didn't even give you my name. What the heck is wrong with you? I have things to do. Just give me my pills.
RX. No. I'm sorry. You don't have any prescription here. You probably should call your doctor and get your prescription sent to another pharmacy.
I've always had my prescription here. What are you talking about?
You are no longer a patient here. Please leave. If you come back to the store, you will be arrested.
How dare you? You can't do that, you dumb jerk. I'll have your license.
And a ton of other complaints as she heads to her car. I step up to the window. What was her problem? RX. I don't know. She was only standing there for like 10 to 15 minutes. Send it exactly like this. As part of my job working in complaints, I write letters to customers. We don't use templates, and each letter is tailored to the individual. Sometimes customers raise multiple complaint points, and each point is carefully addressed in the letter we send. We outline everything the customer is unhappy with, our full investigation, and what we're going to do to put this right. Or alternatively, explaining carefully why their complaint is not justified. A new manager, Steve, was hired a few months ago, and he decided that we were wasting too much time writing letters, and he was going to come up with a template for us to use, as we were obviously too simple to understand how letters are meant to work. So he goes off and drafts a template and proudly shares it with us all. It was crappy, to put it bluntly. It was full of typos and grammatical errors, but it also did not contain details of what the complaint was about or how we had resolved it. Of course, this was pointed out to him in full why this was not appropriate and why it would lead to more complaints, and it's basically terrible customer service. He lost his temper, screamed and yelled until 3 separate people cried and 2 logged out of the virtual meeting. Afterwards, he sent an email saying he wants his letter used exactly as he has attached it. Who am I to argue? I send the letters exactly as he had written them. Copy and pasted to ensure nothing was changed exactly as he asked. Right down to his signature and contact details at the bottom of the letter. I told the rest of the team, and they are all sending letters with Steve's details too. Within the first week, he had 40 customers call him and email complaining about the letter he had sent. The week after, 50 irate customers. Steve hasn't looked into the complaints, so he doesn't know how to address any of the customers or understand their issues. so I get phone calls day in and day out. "This man is livid. What was his complaint about?" Each time I reply, "Oh, it should all be explained in the letter I sent. You know, the one detailing all complaint points, my investigation and resolution in full. I would just check that. Bye." The whole department is now under investigation as customer satisfaction has tanked. Best bit is each and every dissatisfaction is scored against Steve. Every other member of staff has 100% satisfaction as nothing is logged against us. Our name isn't on the letter. Steve is on 0%. It's a terrible shame. Edit. Goodness me, this blew up. Thank you. Hopefully Steve will get fired soon. We work in complaints and we're pretty thick-skinned. To make 3 staff actually cry takes some serious work. He's vile. I will provide an update if management ever gets their act together enough to listen to our concerns. I do feel bad for the customers involved though. The customers that are complaining about the letter don't know that their complaint is upheld and that I've sent them compensation or flowers. They would normally get a letter apologizing deeply, explaining what went wrong and how we will resolve it going forward. Those customers are normally absolute dreams. The only time they come back to us is to thank us. I've never in all my days sent someone a check and a nice letter and had them phoning to yell at me. Poor deluded Steve. Am I the jerk for refusing to provide more than my obligation threshold to my parents? I'm 36, male, and my father brought us to the US from an Asian country when I was 12. I have 4 younger siblings. In our culture, the children are the parents' retirement accounts, so parents tend to invest in their kids and then reap the rewards when they become successful adults and help the parents retire. My father and a couple of his friends came to the US around the same time in the late 80s. His friends have sons around my and my brother's age. They all got the same jobs, but my father consistently earned more money than the other 2. His 2 friends invested in their kids' educations and provided a comfortable lifestyle for their wives and kids back in the old country. My father was more interested in buying land and trying new business ventures, so we lived relatively simple lives. That trend continued until when we came to the US. We lived in relative poverty in the US while my father sent more and more money back home to buy properties. He said he was building his retirement and he was going to move back to the old country and retire there when he was old. At the same time, his friends were working less and spending more time with their kids and investing heavily in their kids' future instead of building properties in the home country. We were in constant contact growing up, and those kids had much better lives than us, going to private schools and getting allowances. My siblings and I would be lucky to get $50 for new notebooks and pencils at the beginning of the school year, let alone an allowance or access to private schools. My parents never went to parent-teacher conferences or ever checked our report cards. Despite all of that, my brother and I are now decently successful in our careers. The sons of his friends are just as successful. Since their fathers sacrificed so much for those guys' futures, they're financing relatively comfortable and lavish retirements for their fathers. My brother and I refuse to do the same, which means that my father can no longer keep up with his friends in terms of quality of life. My father's schemes and businesses and properties in the old country haven't amounted to anything much in terms of income, so my parents are now reliant on my brother and I for support. We only provide enough for them to cover bills and food. We refuse to buy them houses and cars in the old country and here and finance multiple trips back and forth. My brother and I can afford it, but we refuse to provide more than our obligation. Our parents never did anything more than their obligations to house and feed the kids, so we're choosing to limit our support to just that. My father has taken to telling family that his sons have effectively abandoned him, despite our ongoing support, so we've started to be honest when asked and say that he never provided anything more than the bare minimum, so we're choosing to do the same. His investments are in the old country. He can go back and get it from there. Are we the jerks? Well, who do you agree with? OP or his father? Please let us know.
Get what you get and don't throw a fit, Gramps.
Am I the jerk for not letting it go and still expecting an apology from my mother-in-law? Significant other and I have a 10-month-old. Baby got sick at 2 months old, so we told everyone that we would be limited contact and not allowing others to hold him for the time being. My mother-in-law lost her crap, claimed I was keeping her grandson from her. I never let her hold him. She had held him several times in his 2 months, and we had photo proof, and basically cried a whole river to my significant other over it and made me seem like a monster who was out to get her. It caused a huge fight between me and significant other until he realized she was exaggerating and straight up lying. He contacted her and told her that me and him are a team. We won't budge on this. No one is to hold him until we deem it safe. And he called her out on her lies and told her she owes us an apology for the way she acted. Her response? Have a nice life. She didn't speak to us for 4 months straight. I reached out a few times about going by to get my significant other's mail, obviously bringing the baby with me, and she'd either not respond or just say, "On the mailbox," and leave it at that. I wouldn't have had any issue letting her come to my car to see the baby, but she never asked, and I admittedly didn't push it because I was mad. She also turned his entire family against us. Not a single member of his family bothered to get our side of the story and just stopped speaking to us. No one reached out to ask how the baby was for 4 months. Suddenly, she sends a text that says,
"This is stupid. We need to move past it."
because she misses her son and her grandson, leaving me out of it, of course. Significant other told me that he wants to move past it too, but we want an apology for how she reacted to us setting a simple boundary, and it needs to be addressed to me as well. She said that in no way will she apologize because she
Did nothing wrong and has nothing to apologize for.
Significant other told her in that case we can't move past it. She responded by threatening to sue us for grandparent rights for a kid she has not tried to contact in 4 months and doesn't know her at all. Sister-in-law and an aunt-in-law both contacted us saying nasty things about how we are just using the baby as a pawn to make mother-in-law miserable. My significant other and I both agreed we wanted to go full no contact with his family, but we let them know we left a line of communication open via text if they decide to move forward with the GPR issue. It's been 4 months since that, and mother-in-law occasionally sends holiday cards to baby and significant other, and purposely leaves me out of them. But otherwise, none of them have tried to contact us. My entire issue was that even if mother-in-law was mad at us because she couldn't hold him, she still could have been FaceTiming or doing socially distanced visits with us to see the baby. Same goes for the rest of the family. She recently contacted my mom asking how to fix it. My mom told me and significant other that we need to just get over it and forgive her, despite her lack of an apology. I'm of the belief that she's a grown woman and she should know how to A, respect boundaries, and B, apologize when someone tells her she's done something wrong. My significant other agrees. Am I the jerk for still wanting an apology? Well, who do you agree with? OP or mother-in-law? Please let us know.
I just go no contact with them fully. What you're dealing with right now is just a sample of her true colors and what you'll be dealing with for many years to come.
Guitar Karen demands my time slot because her son needs something to do after school. This happened a couple of days ago, and I thought you guys would enjoy it. As a bit of backstory, I play the electric guitar. I take lessons from a teacher that is absolutely the best in the area at what he does. He's been doing it for about 30 years now, so he's really, really good. Understandably, he's also really booked up. When lockdown hit and everyone started doing online classes for school, he lost a bunch of students because they'd typically go to his class after school. And since they weren't in school or doing extracurricular activities, their parents, I guess, decided to yank them from guitar lessons too. One of the things that makes my teacher awesome is that he tends to give scheduling priority to his older students, like me, 41, because they don't give him the headaches of having to manage every little thing between this and that thing for school. It kind of sucks for parents because he's had enough of the headaches of rearranging everyone's life because little Johnny has to play his leading role of being a rock in the school play. Now, this matters because now that kids are starting to go back into the classroom where I live, parents are blowing up his phone trying to schedule their little darlings back into lessons, while us older folks have been dutifully attending or doing online lessons and paying the whole time. So if you've been doing that all this time and you've got the 3:30 slot and you like it, that's where you stay. This matters because of Guitar Karen. Guitar Karen's son used to take guitar lessons, but she pulled him out for the last 9 months or so. In school classes are starting up, and Guitar Karen wants as little to do with her kid as possible, so she has apparently enrolled him in every possible after-school activity that exists. I know this because my teacher rolls his eyes as our lesson is about to begin because his phone is ringing like crazy. I thought it might be an emergency or something, so when he returned to the room, I said, "Your phone has been going crazy." He normally turns it off during our session, and he just mutters something and turns it off, talking about how this woman has signed her kid up for track, baseball, art, band, and now guitar, and in order to ensure he has something to do every single day of the week, he absolutely must have this 4 o'clock slot. You can imagine where this is going. Guess whose slot that is? Mine. I'm super flexible with regard to the days of the week, just not the time of day, because I work until then. I told him as much, but he's like, "No, I'm not moving you. Don't worry." He turns off his phone and we continue on with our lesson. Within like 5 minutes, his computer is going, Ping, 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 ping. And he's like, holy mother of pearl, and shuts the lid. Blissful silence of the remainder of our lesson, until he opens the classroom door, and there stands Guitar Karen, a kind of heavyset woman with her lips pursed like she's gonna give you a kiss, and her brow looking like it has permanently stuck itself in the scowl position, and a Mama Bear t-shirt on. I kid you not. You, she yells at me. Now, I've never seen this lady in my life, but she's got no mask on, so my instinctive reaction is to social distance myself right the heck away from her. But she just Godzilla stomps her way in, knocking over a music stand and sending papers everywhere. She turns and shouts to the teacher,
Why won't you give my son this time spot? He needs it. You need to reschedule your other students and stop singling me out because my son has other activities.
The poor guy can't get a word in edgewise. She's standing in the doorway, so I can't leave. She looks me up and down. Me, who is very much a t-shirt and jeans kind of lady and is wearing a shirt that says, I like heavy metal, coffee, cats, and maybe 3 people, and is like,
I bet you don't even have a job. You're probably some washed-up college dropout. Why'd you pick this time slot anyways? Is it because you knew someone like me needed it? You need to give it to my son.
I also can't say a darn word because this woman just won't shut up. Now, let me reiterate that my teacher is the chillest guy on the planet, but he nearly passed last year from sepsis on top of the whole lockdown thing. So he's really understandably upset when someone gets in your face and is poking at your chest with their long-nailed finger and spraying insults without a mask on. He gets between me and her and says, you need to back up or get out. They take their confrontation out into the hallway. He tells me to go ahead and leave and he'll handle her. I hear him tell this lady, listen, Love Spain has been with me for years, and I'd better never hear you insult her or any of my other students ever again. Your behavior is disgusting, and you need to leave the premises now before I call security. We don't have security in the building, but she doesn't need to know that. He was so fired up, I think he could have landed her flat on her back in that moment. She turns completely meek and is like,
what about lessons for my son?
And at this point, the teacher was like, absolutely not. And she's like,
but he needs this.
And the teacher said, not my problem, and acted as if he were dialing security on his phone. She scuttled out of there as I was leaving the parking lot. I wanted to give my teacher the biggest high five. He later told me he didn't hear from her since then, and he thinks this isn't the last encounter. I imagine she's the type of person that will come down there every weekday at that time to berate whichever poor student has that spot because her son obviously needs it. Speaking of guitar, do you play any instruments yourself? If so, what are they? Please let us know.
I used to sing often. I was told I had a beautiful voice.
Would I be the jerk for having a Star Wars themed wedding? My fiance, 26 female, and I, 27 male, recently got engaged on Valentine's Day 2021. We're hoping to get married in the next 2 years, so almost every conversation we have at the moment is about wedding planning. Star Wars has been a huge influence on my life ever since I was a kid. I've watched all the movies more times than I could possibly count, and it's something nearly all of my family and friends enjoy too. So when I was thinking of wedding planning ideas, it seemed obvious that we should be doing something Star Wars related. I've been brainstorming ideas, and I have some really great themed ideas. For example, blue milk drinks to serve our guests, hiring stormtroopers to party and dance, Jedi robes for all of my groomsmen, playing Across the Stars for the first dance. While I have more typically nerdy interests, my fiance isn't really interested in most movies or games. She's very much a typical girly girl and the type of person who has been planning her wedding since she was very young. She has some very specific ideas about what our wedding should look like, much more formal and glamorous than I'd imagined, and her vision definitely doesn't include lightsabers. The problem is that my fiance really doesn't want anything Star Wars related at our wedding at all. All of my suggestions so far have been shot down without further discussion. One solution I suggested was that we could plan half the wedding, like she handles the ceremony and I plan the reception. That way we could both have what we want. However, my fiance says that plan would make me the jerk because even having a Star Wars themed reception would be an embarrassment in front of everyone we know. From my perspective, this is my wedding too, and I should get to decide at least half of the day. While money isn't much of an issue, we share finances, so I'm paying enough to get a say too. Am I the jerk for wanting a Star Wars themed wedding, even though my fiance really doesn't? Well, who do you agree with? OP or his fiance? Please let us know.
I love me some Star Wars, but if you had insisted on us having a Star Wars wedding, I would have put you out with the dogs, Reddit boy.
I've been waiting 20 years for this. I don't care if you're vegan. Hi, so I'm not one to waste any time, and we'll jump right into the context. It is a bit long though. You've probably seen this label on your diet sodas and sugarless gum. Well, that's for me. I'm a 20-year-old guy living with a medical condition called PKU for short. To sum it up, I've lived my whole life on a low-protein diet since the day I was born. That means no meat, animal byproducts, eggs, dairy, etc., nuts, grains, soy, beans, and more. My body won't process a protein called PHE. It builds up in my body as waste, which it wastes out by basically turning it into a neurotoxin and causing brain damage. I've been on medication for it for just over a year now. To dumb it down, the medication is supposed to replace the chemical in my body that should be there to break down PHE so that I can eat properly. The medication has been working for almost a month now. So far, I've been allowed to increase my total protein allowance to 45 grams of protein, up from the measly 5 I've been limited to my whole life, and we're still testing to see how far we can push it. Here's to a new chapter. Sorry for the long-winded explanation, but onto the story. Recently, I've been spending a lot of time at various grocery stores in my area, just aisle shopping and trying to figure out what foods I can now eat and what I still can't. In this case, I was at Winco, standing in the frozen foods area. I haven't yet introduced meat fully into my life, for personal reasons, so I was looking at the vegan meat substitutes. I grabbed an orange chicken prep bowl and started to head down the aisle where I was cut off by Karen. Now, she wasn't a standard-looking Karen. Her hair went down to the middle of her back and there wasn't any obvious dye job, but she did emanate the aura of a Karen.
Meat is wrong, you know.
I sigh. Well, it's your lucky day. This isn't meat. I tried to shove past her, but she bumped me back.
Red meat, poultry, fish, it's all the same,
she shouted at me. Knee, facepalm. No, ma'am. What I mean is she cut me off before I could tell her it was a vegan substitute.
Don't you ma'am me, brat.
She swung her purse at me and I stepped back to dodge it. But I'm a big guy, 6'5" and 285 pounds, so I wasn't hard to miss. I stumbled back and ran into one of the freezer doors, luckily not breaking it. I sighed and just collected myself before walking off down the other way of the aisle. I eventually lost her after making a lot of maze-like turns and went home without another incident. Insurance company gave me a check for damage to my new car, then took it back. This happened in 2015. At the time, I was 20 and started taking my first steps into the real world of being an adult. I got my first job and bought my first used car. My commute took me through the 57 to 60 interchange, also known as the worst bottleneck in California at the time, and 8th worst in the US. For those not from around here, basically those two freeways merge for about 1.5 miles, 2 kilometers or so. Then they split into 2 freeways again. Everyone at the 57 always wants to get on the 60 and vice versa. The result is a cluster of lane merges for a little over a minute, with everyone moving at 60 to 70 miles per hour. And of course, there's always that one jerk who realizes he got in the wrong lane and needs to cut over all the lanes on the freeway to do so. I had got my first used car the day before. I was borrowing my dad's spare car before this point, but this was my first car in my name. My mom took some pictures of it before I left for work. Once I got to that interchange, a motorcycle gang started splitting lanes on either side of me, easily 15 to 20 of them, and it felt like they weren't going to stop coming. One of them decided to switch lanes and cut off the car in front of me. They braked hard. I braked hard. The girl behind me, on her phone, didn't brake as hard. She rear-ended my new, used car. The dude behind her rear-ended her. I had no idea what to do. It was my first time in an accident, so I pulled over as much as I could to the shoulder, which was barely existent. A tow truck driver saw the accident and called highway patrol for us, and I got the name and insurance details for the girl who hit me. The dude behind her stopped initially, but when I tried to get his details as well, he said, "This car is a rental," and left the scene without giving me any info. The girl's PT Cruiser was totaled. My car had some scuffed paint and a large dent in the rear bumper, which I later found out extended all the way to the metal spare tire holder. I waited around for the gruff highway patrol officer to show up, who had very little patience with me. I didn't even know what the lane numbers were, and chastised both of us for letting the guy in the rental leave. My dad helped me file a claim through his insurance company, since I hadn't even gotten insurance set up yet, due to having the car for not even 24 hours and all. The police report said the girl was at fault. My dad's insurance contacted the girl's insurance, AAA. I got my car inspected at the place AAA told me to go to. It came to about $800, and AAA cut me a check for $800. I cashed the check, waited for it to clear, bought a new computer with the money, and everyone was happy. Or so I thought. I got a call while I was at work from the dad of the girl who hit me. A series of calls, actually. The dad claimed that the damage to my car was pre-existing and says he asked AAA not to pay me since he didn't think it was that badly damaged. I laughed it off. If the person at fault in an accident could just say, "Oh, I don't want to raise my rates, don't pay out," then there wouldn't be a need for insurance. It was just idle, empty threats from someone who suddenly saw their rates spike. Then I was buying lunch a couple days later and my card was declined. It was crazy. My card shouldn't have been declined since I'm very good about keeping on top of all that. I checked my bank account and it had negative $600. I wasn't sure what happened at first, but then I saw that AAA took the $800 check out of my bank account without notifying me because the dad disputed it and they believed him, despite the photographic evidence I gave of the car being in pristine condition before the accident. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any money for gas or food. I called AAA and they basically told me to buzz off and that I needed to take them to court if I disagreed. My dad was in the middle of a small claim suit against his former employer at the time, so I asked him about how lawyers worked, and my dad had his lawyer looked into it for me. Turned out, what AAA insurance did to me, giving me money, letting it settle, then taking it back, was illegal and equivalent to knowingly writing a bad check, with some pretty stiff penalties and fees. The lawyer mailed the letter, and within days I got a call from the local AAA branch apologizing and trying to settle to avoid a lawsuit. They cut me a deal. They would give me $1,600 if I agreed to drop everything and not sue them. So I agreed, and the very next morning, I had a AAA insurance truck show up at my doorstep to drop off a $1,600 check. I wish I knew if they went after the girl's dad or not. That's as much as I know about this story. To this day, I refuse to even consider AAA insurance after that BS, but at least I came out of it $1,600 richer. What would you have done in this situation? Would you have accepted the $1,600 settlement or sued them? Please let us know.
I'd definitely have sued them. I'm no lawyer, but I've got a feeling they would have had to pay out much more if they'd been sued.
Am I the jerk for telling my brother that his crush dislikes him because he's a jerk, not because he's too smart? So I have a younger brother, he's 13, who is a child prodigy. I won't give too many details, but he's well known in the academic circles of our country and attends an institute of higher education. Naturally, people are impressed with his intelligence, and he's quite popular and makes friends easily. Our parents dote on him and have never told him no. As a result, he has become very arrogant, condescending, and disrespectful to people he deems below him. That's just about everyone. Lately, he's been openly talking to a girl he's crushing on, and much to his dismay, she's quite unimpressed with him. He often complains to my parents and I about his failed attempts to befriend her. I understand why she dislikes him. On one occasion, he invited her over for a school project, and I overheard their interaction. He was constantly talking over her, dismissing her ideas, and even calling them stupid. 99% of the time, he was talking about himself and his accomplishments, being in the news articles, his future plans, etc. The poor girl obviously seemed uncomfortable. He quizzed her about her career aspirations, and when she answered, he proceeded to point out it's a bad career path. Today, he was once again complaining about her and said that she's obviously intimidated by his superior intellect. He claimed that all girls only like stupid guys and that women are emotional. Sadly, my parents agreed and kept assuring him that she was obviously uncomfortable with the fact that he's so accomplished and awesome. After hearing this nonsense many times, I finally told him that his crush dislikes him because he behaves like an obnoxious know-it-all jerk. I explained that he'd probably have a chance if he showed some modesty instead of talking down on her so much. So my parents obviously think I'm the jerk for saying this. They said that it was horrible of me to say this to a 13-year-old and that he's just a kid. I told them that he needs to realize that his personality is becoming a problem and that his crush dislikes him because he's a jerk, not because he's too smart. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk or is their brother? Please let us know.
Definitely the little brother. Won't be long now until that neckbeard starts growing in.
Dealing with scam calls. Please call the cops on me. Like most of us with a landline, cheaper than TV and internet in my Northeast US region. Don't judge. I was getting a ton of spam calls, all about my car warranty, which I never had/purchased, my wife's student loans, who never went to college, IRS collections, energy sales, etc. You name it, they called. Well, we decided to start picking up and harassing the scammers. Big mistake. They don't take you off their call lists. Instead, they start to spoof your number so that your number shows up on caller ID for everyone they call. It got so bad that we changed our voicemail from, "Hi, you've reached OP's last name. Please leave a message," to, "If you received a call from us and don't recognize our number, it's a scam. Please report this to the local police as we have reported it to our police and nothing has changed. Scammers are taking us all and nothing will change if we ignore the calls." Yes, it was that bad. We were receiving 10 plus voicemails per day, most threatening. "Stop calling. Go love an animal. I'm calling the police," etc. We turned off our ringer, disconnected our phone so only our fax machine/printer picked up, and hoped for the best to no avail. Thus, I started the "I don't work here lady" approach. I had a few calls that I picked up during this time frame, and the "I don't work here lady" calls were surprisingly wholesome. A typical call transcript, paraphrased of course, is below. Phone rings. Me. "Hello?" Caller. "Stop calling me." Me. "Hey, I know this isn't what you expect, but I think you've been had by scam calls. They're spoofing my number to call you, and I've reported it to my local police. I made the mistake of answering and trying to give them a hard time, so now they spoof my number to call others and punish me. You can Google it and verify my story. Just don't answer their calls no matter what you do. Also, please call your local police and report my number and the calls so we can get these calls to stop. My name is OP, and I live in this town. I am just as sick of these calls as you are. Please report my number to your police. Maybe then there will be some legislature or pressure on the phone companies to stop this nonsense." Caller. "Oh, hey, sorry. I just get so many of these calls, and I'm frustrated beyond belief. Sorry to bother you." Except for Karen's. But the rest of the conversation on my part remained the same. Me. "Seriously, report my number to the police and block it. We have no prior business, and let your phone company know as well. I'm with this phone provider, and the only way they will make changes is if we all complain enough so that they have to deal with it. I'm happy to speak with local police about the issue, and just for the record, I do not want any information from you. Let's deal with this stuff guerrilla style." Conversations from that point typically ended with apologies and mutual understanding, or promises to call the police and report my number, to which I always reiterated, "Please do. This is how we can make the world a better place," or some similar sentiment. Maybe not the most extreme "I don't work here" lady, but I hope you enjoyed the read. I'm happy to answer questions and will provide any insight or clarification requested. Edit. Okay, wow, I didn't expect this to blow up overnight like it did. Thank you, kind strangers, for the awards. Let me address some of the common questions or comments that I've received. 1. This is my landline, and changing the number only shuffles my spam calls to someone else, and someone else's spam to me. The phone company puts a shiny "complaint resolved" sticker on their books, and nothing actually changes. Also, have you ever changed your phone number? How many people have your current number? It's a royal pain and not worth the effort. I'd rather spend the same amount of time talking to other people of this crap, and maybe they will talk to others. Eventually, something might change because the people took action. 2. Why didn't I report it to the phone company? I did, and they basically told me, "We get this complaint a lot. There isn't anything we can do about it aside from changing your number." See point 1 for why I'm not doing that. We were also getting a lot of hateful voicemails, even with my updated answering machine message, so I thought the police should be involved since it could be considered harassment. 3. Spam filtering is enabled through the phone company, and as a landline, my phone isn't running Android or iOS, so the smartphone tricks don't work. I definitely think these are great tools. Unfortunately, blocking all numbers not in your contacts can have adverse effects. The doctor's office calling to verify your appointment using a secondary line at their office, automated calls from your work/school regarding inclement weather closings, family or friends calling from an unfamiliar number, and so on. For anyone with a landline experiencing the same thing, unplugging your answering machine and setting a fax machine, most multifunction printers nowadays have fax machines built in, to pick up on the second ring seems to stop the calls. I did this for 3 months, and when I plugged my answering machine back in, my inbound call volume was way down, from 10 to 30 calls per day to maybe 1 or 2. Just out of curiosity, do you remember ever having a landline or not? Please let us know in the comments.
I bet many of you will remember having them, but not actually purchasing a landline yourself as an adult.
Am I the jerk for telling my mom that since I'm paying for my apartment, she doesn't really have a say about anything? Hi, I, 26, female, am finally moving out of my parents' house after 4 long years of living at home. My mom, 61, female, has been nothing but overbearing through the process. I know that this is because she's nervous and scared, and I've truly been trying to be extremely patient with her. My mom really likes to decorate, and she has a really good taste, but it's not my taste. I like things to be more neutral colors when it comes to furniture, while she likes things to be more colorful. I tend to lean towards a Scandinavian style of furniture because it's modern, but not too modern, and it's a sleek, simple design. I decided that I was going to get some stuff from IKEA just because it's affordable and I like the style. I found a pull-out couch that I liked in light gray. Ever since I showed it to my mom a couple of weeks ago, she's been constantly telling me that it was an ugly couch and that I shouldn't get it. We went to IKEA last week to buy it, and my mom was still protesting me getting the couch and telling me that it was ugly. We weren't able to buy it though because the card system was down, but we went and looked at it. My parents, younger brother, and I were talking about the trip to IKEA later that day. My mom started going off about how the couch I wanted was ugly and how she still thought I should get a different one. I was incredibly fed up with her constantly saying it was ugly. I said since it's my apartment and I'm paying for the couch, you don't really have a decision on what goes into my apartment. She got mad and started telling me that I have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to setting up an apartment. I said that she's done nothing but say that everything I picked out is ugly, and that if she wanted a say in what goes into my apartment, she could either pay for a couch or help me pay rent. My mom then went off and told me that I was being extremely ungrateful after she took the time out of her day and drove me to IKEA. She insisted that she come with me after I told her I wanted to go alone. I said it doesn't matter. I still have the final say. My mom then went off about how I have terrible taste in furniture. I cut her off and said I'm tired of talking about this stupid couch with you because it always ends in an argument. It's my decision and I'm getting the couch. My dad ended up speaking to my mom after she stormed off to the kitchen and made her apologize. He said that I was right. If she wanted to say, she'd have to financially contribute, but I made it clear that I don't want that. He also pointed out to my mom that because of lockdown, it's affecting their business negatively. They really couldn't afford to do that, and that I also expressed that as being part of the reason why I didn't want them to help financially. Even though she apologized, she's still kind of upset. So, am I the jerk for telling my mom that since she wasn't helping financially, she couldn't have a say in what went into my apartment? Edit. I just want to post up here a few things. 1. A few people have asked why I let her come. As I said above, I didn't want her to come, but she insisted. 2. My parents will not be getting a key at all. I'm moving several states away, and it'll be very hard for my mom to just randomly show up. Am I the jerk for putting rules on the money I give? I, 22, female, graduated in nursing at the beginning of December and got a job at the end of December. My parents, early 60s, helped me pay for tuition and housing that scholarships didn't cover. Each semester, they would give me around $5,000 to $6,000. I had a job and worked 20 hours a week to pay for my car insurance, books, and groceries. I currently live at home and now pay for my car insurance, phone bill, water bill, and help with groceries. This is about $300 a month. Throughout college, I have always said once I graduate, I will help my parents pay for my brother's college expenses because they spent a lot of money on my education and I want to give my brother, 20, male, the same opportunities. My parents are older and they want to stop working soon, so I was more than happy to help. They currently pay for his tuition/fees, which comes out to $10,000 a semester, and rent, which is about $650 with utilities. He also gets an allowance of $50 a month because he doesn't have a job. I make about $6,000 each month, and I mostly save my money after bills are paid. I offered to help with rent and buy his books each semester as long as he keeps his GPA above a 3.0. If it goes below a 3.0, I will only pay half of his rent and still buy his books. We all agreed to these rules, especially my parents. This semester, it looks like his GPA will be a 2.7. He shared he will not be able to foot half the rent on his own. I told him to get a job and work at least 10 hours a week so he can pay $100 a month plus his groceries. I will cover the rest, which is basically $550 a month. This wouldn't start until the semester ended in mid-May. He told me it wasn't fair to expect him to get a job while in school, and he's already having a tough time. I told him I understood that it's been hard to learn throughout the lockdown. My last 2 semesters were online learning, but I still worked. I told him my new offer is the only thing I can do to help, or he can go back to the original and pay half like we agreed. He called me controlling and greedy. He hasn't talked to me since. I know I can continue to pay the full amount, but we agreed to the rules, and I even offered a little grace by going from half to $550. My parents agree with me and say they won't help more than they have been. Am I the jerk? Edit. Information I didn't add. 1. My parents did put conditions on financial help for me when I was in school. I had to maintain a 3.0. Originally, my brother had to maintain a 3.5, but I persuaded them to go down to 3.0 because it seemed a little much. 2. I do believe my brother is having a hard time with the lockdown, but related to school, he finds 2 classes boring and doesn't participate or turn in his work. This is why his GPA is low. Well, who do you agree with? OP or her little brother? Please let us know.
Getting a job is part of the college experience. $50 a month allowance isn't what we want here. He needs a paycheck. I hope he gets a job.
Karen mother-in-law demands to move in with us. To preface, my 40 female, husband 41 male, and I have been together since we were 15 and 16 respectively. We were married at 18 and 19, and we had our first kid when we were 19 and 20. Our second kid was born 4 years later. My in-laws, mother-in-law in particular, has never liked me and has made it very clear that I am no part of the family. She would purposely exclude me from family trips and holidays and celebrations, and if I did show up, I would get the cold shoulder. So I stopped going to events, stopped sending holiday gifts, and basically went no contact with his entire family while he went low contact with them. Now that both of our kids are grown and ready to leave the nest, our son lives with his boyfriend of 4 years and is training to be an electrician. Our daughter is going to college 2 hours away for nursing, and we're helping her find and pay her own apartment near campus. My husband and I decided to downsize the house and get something with 3 bedrooms. Something for just me and my husband when we get ready to retire. We will have 1 room designated for the kids if and when they come to visit. Both of our kids are in full support of this and have been keeping an eye out for properties we would be interested in. My husband told mother-in-law our plan, and she's now upset. She was under the impression that when our daughter left for college in the fall, that her and father-in-law would be moving in with us, and we would be taking care of them. My husband was confused and asked why they would think that, and she stated that as the oldest, it is his responsibility to take care of the elders in the family. Father-in-law is retired and has been for almost 5 years. Mother-in-law is also retired and gets a pension as well. Neither one of them are hurting financially, and they do not suffer from any medical conditions that would require care. Them living here would be an absolute mental and physical burden on both of us, but mostly me, as I would be the one doing most of the caring. My husband and I discussed it, and both agree that this is insane, and both told mother-in-law and father-in-law that whatever they have planned, they will have to find someplace else to go. Mother-in-law is now calling us, our kids, and other family members to try and get us to change our minds. My kids, who should not be involved in this drama at all, both agree that it's our time now and that we need to sell this house before they show up on the porch. Everyone else is calling us selfish and telling us that we owe it to mother-in-law and father-in-law to take care of them during their old age. So, are we the jerks for telling mother-in-law that they cannot come live with us? Edit. I apologize for not adding this in the post. My husband noticed after I typed that I excluded it. In my husband's culture, it's very common for adult kids to have their parents move in with them when they get old/retire. Update. Thank you for all of your comments and replies. We are both relieved that somehow we are not the jerks or that we are being petulant kids. My husband is going to call his parents tonight and tell them that their treatment, mother-in-law in particular, is the reason why they are not welcome to live here with us, and that is our final answer. Husband will suggest that if they need care, we will gladly find them an assisted living facility, but we, more specifically I, will not be taking care of them, and it's because, as all of you have pointed out, I am not family. So thank you all for helping us, and we really appreciate it. And to answer one last question, yes, my husband is Asian and I am white. My mother-in-law refers to me as White Devil. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you let the mother-in-law and father-in-law move in with you or not? Please let us know.
Sure, I'd put a doghouse out back for her.
Bakery had my mom's car towed, so I got the business closed down. This happened about 8 years ago in 2013, And when I tell people this story, I get mixed reactions, so I figured why not tell Reddit. My mom and I decided to go out to lunch one day. We drove until we found a lot that's business did not appear to be open at the time. My mom pulls into the lot and parks in a spot. We both walk over and investigate the business's window. It was a pastry shop for purposes later in the story. The lights are not on, the door is locked, and there's a sign that says closed right behind the door. We conclude that they are closed and went to eat our lunch. We finished eating about a little over an hour later and come back to find out that our car was missing, but now the bakery was open. My mom and I walk inside of the bakery and ask if they had seen our car. The owner, with a very stern tone and attitude, said, "Yeah, I had it towed because it was taking up spots for potential customers. You should have come inside to ask me first." My mom responds that we did attempt to see if she was open and even buy something to see if we could park there for an hour or so. She calls us liars and said she had been open all day and we never attempted to ask. My mom just basically said we tried and that it was wrong for her to tow us with so many other spots still available. The owner said something back to my mom that really upset her and made her cry. All while this was going on, I was taking mental notes that this bakery/pastry shop was having ventilation/insulation work being done. The insulation worker, who I can only assume was a random contractor and not a specialist, was doing the work right over the prep table for food, all while smoking a cigarette. As I go to console my mom, I turn around and tell the lady her sign still says closed, like when we originally came to the door. She storms up to me, picks up the sign, and slams it around to open. "We are open now." I calmed my mom down and we eventually got the car back from the tow company and got home. Once we got home, I was angry that lady made my mom cry, so I wanted revenge. I called the health department for the city. I say exactly what I wrote above to the guy on the phone, who puts me on hold and tells me to repeat everything I said word for word to his director. I tell the director the story. Nothing about the car being towed, obviously. I was a concerned citizen. She verifies the address and location with me 3 separate times. Yes, the name was X. Yes, it was across the street from this restaurant on this street. She then tells me that she shut down that business the week prior for plumbing issues, insulation, and multiple other infractions. She was told she could not be open and operate a business until the plumbing issue was fixed and approved, told me she would handle it. Later that night on the news, that business was being shut down for good for all the infractions, and I could see my mom look so confused and happy at the same time, like karma worked for her that quickly. Told my mom years later, and she loved it. Speaking of pastries, what are your favorite types of pastries to eat? Please let us know.
Do Pop-Tarts count? I love the strawberry ones
After being put in the toaster. Follow the student's education plan to the letter? Don't mind if I do. I'm a high school teacher. One of the things the teachers deal with are individual education plans, IEPs. An IEP is for a student with disabilities, learning, developmental, etc. An IEP will outline exactly what accommodations a student is entitled to. These are very necessary and very important, legally binding documents which outline a student's disability as it relates to academic performance and provides accommodations to help the student succeed in school. Common accommodations include may use a calculator on math tests, may have test questions read aloud to him or her, may receive extra time on timed tests, and may take tests in the resource room instead of the academic classroom. It is that last accommodation that is important for this story. If you are unfamiliar, a resource room is the classroom of the special education teacher. While the special education students spend 90% of their day in the same classrooms as other students, they will occasionally return to their special ed teacher's room, the resource room, for things like study hall, homeroom, or to take a test. The special ed teacher assigned to help monitor the student's progress is known as the teacher of record, or TOR for short. Billy was one of my students last year. He was a bright, outgoing, and very active student. However, Billy also did have a few learning disabilities that caused him to struggle in class. Because of these disabilities, may take tests and quizzes in the resources room instead of the academic classroom was a very important part of his IEP. This cut down on distractions and was to help Billy concentrate on his test. After about half a year of Billy doing well in class, he unexpectedly failed a test in my class. The TOR, Mrs. Ratchet, was really upset that Billy didn't do well on that test. She monitored his grades through our online system, so she knew he failed the test less than 10 minutes after I had graded it. In order to get to the bottom of why, She stopped by my classroom after the students had gone home for the day.
Mr. Onyx, why did Billy fail his test?
I'm not sure. He normally does well on the tests, but this one seemed to stump him. I'm going to talk to him about it tomorrow.
Did you follow his IEP?
Yes, I did. I offered to let him take the test in the resource room, but he elected to take it in class since it was not a long test. It should be noted that IEP accommodations are generally elective, meaning that the student can choose not to use a specific accommodation at any given point if he or she does not wish to. This does not stop him or her from using that same accommodation later. The only time an accommodation is mandatory is if the parents request that it be so. It is reflected in the IEP when that happens, but it is exceedingly rare.
But,
Mrs. Ratchet continued,
Billy's IEP states that he gets time and a half on tests.
I'm aware, I explained. However, this was not a timed test. All students had as much time as they needed. If a student didn't finish during today's class period, they could finish the test tomorrow. All students, including Billy, finished today.
He gets time and a half.
Yes, he does. But as I said, this was not a timed test. There was unlimited time for all students, including Billy.
I'm not going to file a non-compliance report on this, but I want you to know that I expect you, the state expects you, to follow IEPs to the letter. You should not have allowed him to take the test in class. He should have received more time than the other students. You dropped the ball on this one, and I expect it not to happen again.
She then stormed out. Now, Billy had chosen to take the test in class, something he very rarely did. I'm not sure why Mrs. Ratchet was so incensed that he hadn't taken the test in her room, since it was Billy's decision, but whatever. As for the time, this was a non-issue. You can't give time and a half for unlimited time, so I ignored that complaint. A few weeks later, Billy had a quiz in my class. This was a very short 10-question quiz. Again, Billy elected to stay in my room. Again, sadly, Billy failed the quiz. That triggered round 2 with Mrs. Ratchet.
What is wrong with you, Mr. Onyx?
She demanded as she stormed into my room the day the quiz grades were being uploaded to our grading system.
Billy should be in my room taking these tests and quizzes.
Billy chose not to. I offered him the opportunity to take the quiz in your room, but he chose not to. I cannot force him.
I'm getting very tired of your disregard for IEPs. I'm going to be filing a non-compliance report with the administration.
I knew I had done nothing wrong, so I wasn't worried. As I suspected, the administration dismissed her complaint as being without merit, and I went on my way. Then, about 2 weeks after the complaint was filed and dismissed, I got an updated IEP for Billy. It seems Mrs. Ratchet was not happy about Billy failing tests and quizzes when he took them in the academic classroom as opposed to the resource room. As a result, she called up Billy's parents and, through conference with them, got his IEP changed. Instead of Billy may take tests and quizzes in the resource room, it now read, Billy must take tests and quizzes in the resource room under the supervision of the teacher of record. The last 8 words of that mandate caught my eye, under the supervision of the teacher of record. This meant that, as TOR, Mrs. Ratchet is now legally mandated to be present in her classroom every time Billy takes a test or quiz. Since special ed has instructional assistants, IA, as well as licensed teachers in the room at all times, it's not usually a problem if the TOR is out of the room, since an IA will be in there. Nope, not anymore. I was still upset at Miss Ratchet for her non-compliance complaint against me, even though it got dismissed. I was also upset at her making demands of me, as if I worked for her. I was following the law, following Billy's IEP, and I would be darned if I was going to let anyone tell me I wasn't. Enter the malicious compliance. Every teacher, including special ed teachers, gets a prep period. These periods are periods in which we do not have a class. I use mine for grading and making copies. Some teachers use them to plan for the extracurricular activities they coach or direct. Mrs. Ratchet, I knew, used hers to hang out down the hall in her classroom of her BFF, a biology teacher with the same prep period as her. If a student had a test or quiz to take, it wouldn't be an issue normally. An IA would be in the room, so the TOR didn't have to be. Well, except for Billy now. You see, Mrs. Ratchet's prep period was the same period in which I had Billy in class. About a week after the new IEP was handed down, I had another quiz in class. Unfortunately for Billy, as I explained to him, his parents and Mrs. Ratchet had decided that he had to take quizzes and tests in Mrs. Ratchet's room. He wasn't happy, but his IEP was not vague on this point. Knowing Mrs. Ratchet wouldn't be in the classroom, I took Billy down to Mrs. Ratchet's room myself, having my own IA, who was only in my room because of Billy, watch the class. When I got there, I asked the IA where Mrs. Ratchet was. "She's in Miss Bio teacher's room," she kindly explained. "All right," I said. "Billy, have a seat and I'll go get Mrs. Ratchet." "Mrs. Ratchet?" I said a few moments later as I got to Miss Bio teacher's room. "Billy needs to take a quiz. We need you down in your room to supervise."
Miss IA is there,
she said with a dismissive wave.
she can handle it.
"Oh no, she can't," I explained with a smile. "You see, I am, as you reminded me, expected to follow Billy's IEP to the letter. His IEP says that he must take tests and quizzes in the resource room under the supervision of the teacher of record. As his teacher of record, I'm afraid that you are required to be there. It would be non-compliance for me to leave the supervision of his quiz up to Miss IA." She looked upset, but knew that she had backed herself into a corner. Reluctantly, and obviously fuming, she left Miss Bio teacher's room and returned to her room. For the remainder of the year, every test and quiz I assigned to Billy required that Mrs. Ratchet give up her prep period in order to supervise. There weren't a lot of them, but I really enjoyed twisting the knife every so often, just to remind her that it was her actions which forced this. Later, from what I've been told, she tried to get Billy's parents to change the IEP to state may instead of must. They liked the must. They kept it in. Edit. I've addressed a couple of things a few times in the comments, but I want to point out that I have no evidence that there was cheating going on in the resource room, nor do I have any reason to think that there was a bad relationship between Billy, Mrs. Ratchet, and her IAs. Quite honestly, the reason Billy chose to stay in my room a couple times was because those two assessments were short tests and quizzes, and like all kids, Billy just didn't want to spend the time walking down to Mrs. Ratchet's room. Also, like all kids, Billy was just not prepared for those tests, hence him failing. For a couple people who questioned why I let him stay in my room for the quiz after he had failed the first test, please keep in mind that his IEP at that point stated may take tests in the resource room. The key word is may. The decision was his to make. I would encourage him, but not require him to take tests in the resource room. Well, until the IEP was changed to must. Have you ever had a teacher you just couldn't stand? If so, what was wrong with them? Please let us know.
I had a teacher named Mr. Stanley when I was in middle school. The guy's breath smelled like dead cats.
No, you won't get a $400 gift card for a $300 washing machine. So I used to work at a big electronics store that also sold appliances. I had just put in my 4-week notice. I chose to stay longer since the holidays were coming and the store had a lot of people leave to better jobs or move stores for promotions. I was tasked with covering appliances since I was one of the high sellers with fewer returns. As I'm going around the department and cleaning the fingerprints off of stainless, I hear a loud, "Ahem." This woman was glaring at me and used her chubby finger to motion me over. Now, while I always prided myself in making angry people happy with their experience, and even if they were mad, I'd try to give them the benefit of the doubt that they might have something else they are angry about, and it's not me personally. So I got up from my scrubbing and walked over to the large sign that was posted. Now, we would occasionally give free gift cards on certain large purchases, and we had a promotion on a particular brand of washer and dryer. The sign in question read along the lines of, "Get up to a $400 gift card on select washer and dryer pairs," basically meaning to get the $400 gift card, you had to buy the $2,500 washer and $2,500 dryer as a pair. The woman points to the washer and dryer set that's the brand's low-end option that were $300 each. This was a few years ago, so not verbatim.
I'll take this washing machine. I don't need a dryer, and I want the gift card in cash.
I politely explained the ad and this particular set didn't come with a gift card and that she would need to upgrade to get it. I also showed her the model that came with a gift card. She balked at the price, which I don't blame her. She then whips out her phone and starts recording me and asks me to explain again how I'm ripping people off and that she's going to have me fired, etc. At this point, my GM walks over and asks what the problem is. I should note that my GM and I had a very good relationship, and he would sometimes ask me to handle problem customers, usually around the holidays when the other managers were preparing for war, since I was good at getting people in a much better mood. I had also worked with him long enough for him to know when I was uncomfortable and needed some help. The woman points at the sign, camera still rolling, and asks him how he sleeps at night knowing that he's ripping people off. He then proceeded to tell her that she can either take the deal that corporate was offering or purchase an open box item, display item, or damaged that was heavily discounted. Lady walks off in a huff and met who I assume was her significant other, loudly complaining to anyone who would listen that she's never coming here again, and proceeded to purchase 4 new phones from the cell phone department. I have more stories about crazy people if you would like to hear them. My area is pretty diverse, so they come in all brands of wackadoo. I've told this story to family and friends for a chuckle, and I did not expect anything from it, so thanks. Lady acts like orders can be retroactively unmade. To set the scene, I work in a Chinese restaurant in a casino. Our clientele are generally terrible to deal with, but this particular lady wins the award for the biggest pain in the butt of the day. And she didn't even get her food by the time she earned this trophy. This lady comes in, sits down, and I notice she's kind of watching us servers. So I go over and ask if she wanted to order something. She immediately starts ordering. Great, we're a fast-paced, casual dining venue. Get in and get out is better for us. But then it takes a sudden turn for the worse. Me. Okay, so I have chicken wings, vegetable noodle soup. Karen.
Actually, no more house fried rice. Let's get the Thai combo instead.
Me. Okay, we'll do that. I repeat her order and 10 minutes go by. Karen is literally yelling at me.
Actually, can I cancel random entree and replace it with new entree? Oh, and instead of chicken wings, can I get the random appetizer?
Me. So, you don't want those anymore? I look in the window and literally see the items in the window.
No, just cancel them. I want these instead.
Me. Okay. I go to the back, inform the chefs. The chefs groan. I figure we're done. We're done, right? Oh no. Karen is again yelling at me.
Can you cancel the other order of chicken wings now? I actually just want another new entree instead.
Me. Yes. I go back and inform the cooks, wrap around the corner, and moan. Another few minutes go by, and another server grabs my attention. Server. Karen says she wants to cancel her bottled beverage. I look at her table. Karen has literally opened it and poured it into a cup, then decided she didn't like it. Me. We can't cancel that. She's opened it. We can't resell it. No. Server. But she doesn't. Me. She's opened it. No. At this point, I'm ready to lose it. Is it really that hard for you to sit down and decide what you want? The cherry on top of this crab pie, this lady decides to wait another 30 minutes so that her ungodly kids can now come over. 30 minutes after she has finished eating, and then asks me to reheat her food. Working in a casino sucks because it makes it very difficult for anyone to say no to this stupid stuff. She demands I drive out to fix her broken terminal twice. A recent story reminded me of this. Way back in the day, 1992-ish, I worked tech support for a company that handled installation of Unix computers, terminals, software for accounting systems for small organizations. We could dial into their setup and remote control the software, apply updates, etc. One day I get a call from this woman who insisted that the terminal she was using was broken. I called into their system and could see that the terminal wasn't connected at the moment. So I stepped through her, making sure that it was plugged in. She insisted absolutely that it was plugged in, turned on, and the light was on and everything. After running through all the possibilities that I could think of, she was still adamant that I come out and replace the terminal since it was clearly broken. I was hesitant to make this trip since it was 225 kilometers away, would require about 5 or 6 hours of my day to make the round trip, traffic and a lot of snow. But my boss told me to make sure these customers were kept happy. I grabbed a new terminal out of the storage closet, some extra cabling in case it was just a bad serial cable, and my tools, and headed out on the trip. At least I got paid enough per kilometer that it was well worth it. It took me about 3 hours to get there, and this woman is just steamed. I walk in the door, set my bag down, look at the wall, where the power cord is clearly not plugged into the wall itself. I picked up the cable, plugged it in, and lo and behold, the terminal turned on and the login prompt comes up. I looked at her, and she tells me that she tried that. I was literally in the office for less than 60 seconds, and since the call was not actually our problem, they got billed for this 6-hour-long service call in full, and I got 450 kilometers of mileage at like 25 cents per kilometer, was way more than the gas/maintenance on my old 86 Honda Accord cost me. Cue the same woman 8 days later. She's on the phone to me, screaming that my fix didn't work at all, and that the terminal was broken again, and that I needed to replace the faulty terminal right now. I asked her if the terminal was plugged into the wall, because remember last week when I came out and it wasn't plugged in? Are you absolutely sure? She was absolutely sure. Another 3-hour drive down there. Walk in the door and look at what I see. The power cable is clearly laying on the floor again. I asked her if she saw that it was unplugged. She told me that she isn't technical and that I should have made sure that it was done right last time. I plugged it back in and guess what? It worked. She was still mad because it shouldn't be happening this much. Not sure how I was supposed to make that happen. I grabbed my bag, but before I left, I noticed that this small company had gotten a new receptionist. I guess before they didn't have one. So I stopped and chatted for a bit, asking her if she knew anything about what's going on with the plug to the terminal. She didn't have a clue, but she would keep an eye out for me. Made it another 10 days before I get another call from the lady again. I tell her I was on a service call, but I'll call her back in 5 minutes. A quick call to the receptionist where she said that the lady had her little nephews in the room, so she ran and checked that the terminal was unplugged for me. It was. She plugged it back in, and when I called back to the lady, she said it was working again, but was still wary that it was going to go out. I told her that if it fails again, have her receptionist call me so she won't have to wait, and I can perform a reset of the connection remotely, a new feature, and get her up and running in 2 minutes. I never had to make another in-person service call to that location again. I sent the receptionist a big box of Bernard Callebaut chocolates for Xmas. Am I the jerk for telling my friends and family I won't be sponsoring anyone anymore? I don't think I'm the jerk, but a few people have said that I am because charities are really struggling due to lockdown, so I'd really value outside opinions. I'm on a small fixed income due to health issues, and while I'm not living on the breadline or absolutely broke, I don't have holidays, buy expensive clothes, eat at restaurants a lot, etc. I can cover my bills and expenses, but don't have a great deal of fun money. Maybe 20 to 30 pounds a month to spend on clothes, toiletries, maybe a book or a craft item. I also have some expenses that are directly related to my health that really mount up. In the past, whenever friends or family are doing sponsored events for charity, I always try to donate something, even if it's just 10 pounds. This year, a few of my friends have signed up to do various challenges. I know that the charity sector is really struggling at the moment, so I'm proud of them for stepping up. I posted on the Book of Faces that this year I'm unable to sponsor anyone as I desperately need an electric wheelchair, and I need to save every penny for that. I said I was proud of everyone that has decided to do an event and will support them by sharing the event, but that I was really sorry but wouldn't be able to support them financially. 2 people messaged me asking if they were exempt from this because we're so close, and I said no, it applies to everyone. I explained, although they already know this, that not being able to leave the house was massively affecting my mental health, and I needed to prioritize this. They said it was a bad time to stop supporting charities when they are already struggling. One of them also called me a selfish jerk. They said that electric wheelchairs are for people who can't work at all. Here's where I might be the jerk. I know that many charities are struggling or are reaching the point where they are unable to continue to provide much needed services, and I've been helped in the past by charities and organizations. One of my friends who said I was the jerk pointed out that the charity she was raising money for, the Samaritans, was a charity that I had used previously. On a really good day, I can get around my small local shop, but that's about it, and that only happens once every 2 or 3 weeks. Most of the time, I'm able to get around my ground floor apartment by holding on to furniture and using walking sticks, but obviously outside, I can't lean on furniture, and if I fall, it's not a soft landing. I'm 34 and feel like I have no life. Also, I need an electric wheelchair, around 2,000 pounds, rather than a mobility scooter, around 500 to 1,000 pounds. As where I live, you can't use mobility scooters in public transport, and you can use electric wheelchairs. I don't drive, so this would literally change my life, but I understand that charities are struggling. So, would I be the jerk? Edit. Thank you all for your comments. I didn't think I was the jerk at first, but I obviously have a lot of time to think about things, and they really got in my head and made me doubt myself. I also think that not being able to get out much has limited my abilities to make friends, and I'm probably hanging on to people because of that. However, if they're making me feel so bad and aren't there for me, then I guess they aren't real friends anyway. Thank you so much. I will stick to not sponsoring and reassess those who have an issue with this. Thank you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their friends? Please let us know.
Those so-called friends aren't friends at all. I'd cut them out of my life ASAP. Take care of yourself, OP. You are very much worth it.
Cold hard cash? Sure thing. Prefacing this with the information that 1. My grandma has too much money. 2. My grandma has too much time. 3. My grandma has too big of a freezer. And 4. My grandma is petty as heck. The story. I have a cousin who's always wanted all sorts of interesting things for his birthday. Grandma loved that, absolutely adored it. She gave him a turtle ocarina once, and I love it. That should explain her gifting for you. Now, as he grew up, he was less and less inclined to entertain Grandma's whimsical ideas and started requesting more mainstream presents. Grandma hated that and still found ways to make them whimsical. You want a guitar? Okay, but it'll have hippie wood-burning patterns on it. You want bed sheets? Sure thing, but they'll have tie-dye prints all over and be made of silk. If it was possible to make a gift whimsical, Grandma would do it. We all knew this and started getting awfully specific in what we requested until one year he threw his hands up and said, "I don't know, just give me cold hard cash." Bad move. Very bad move. Grandma has chest freezers, the kind that are 4 feet deep, 4 feet across, and 12 feet long. Grandma also lives in a little foresty cottage plot, which means Grandma has access to all sorts of gardening tools and tinkers. So Grandma, being Grandma, found a big bucket, a ton of little plastic seed bags, and got to work. Cousin, of course, was very excited to finally get a normal gift and was grinning at Grandma, thinking that he finally won the game. That is, until Grandma brought out a 2x2x2 squared ice cube full of cash. Edited to add, measurements might be off. She used some sort of gardening bucket, and I was very angry when it happened. This story has been retold by Grandma so many times that I don't think she remembers the exact measurements either. It wasn't frozen together either. Oh no. Grandma had gotten creative and layered the ice gradually, freezing the cash solidly through the cube. This thing was icy white and oozing when brought into the room, and Grandma proudly announced that since he wanted cold hard cash, she gave him exactly that. This mad woman froze the equivalent of $1,000 in the ice in mixed money, which were tiny coins and bigger coins and bills in little seed bags near the center. It took the block about a week to melt because my cousin's birthday is in January, and his mother refused to let it melt in the house for the fear of water damage, so it was set in their garage slowly melting. Edited to add, bathtubs aren't common where I'm from, and they didn't have one. Moral of the story, don't mess with Grandma and her whimsical presents. Wife gave away thousands from our savings account without telling me. I, 39 male, have been married to my wife, 36 female, for 12 years. We have no kids, but we do have a cat and a dog who we consider to be our kids. My wife has a sister, M, who's 37 female, who has made very poor financial choices and is now heavily in debt. She refuses to get a job and instead jumps from an MLM or get-rich-quick scam to the next, sponging off of relatives to make ends meet. Both me and my wife work full-time. We each have separate accounts that we use for our fun money for hobbies and whatever we want. We earn almost the same amount of money, with me being a little higher. So I contribute 60% and she contributes 40% to make things fair, and also so we each have about the same amount of fun money. We also have a joint checking and savings account that we use for the household bills and household emergency fund, like when the water heater flooded the basement in the middle of the night. Both of us have access to the joint accounts, and if we need to use it, it's never an issue, so long as we make sure to tell the other one that we used funds from those accounts. As I was going through the statement for our joint household account, I noticed that there was approximately $2,000 missing from the joint savings account. I noticed that they were all Venmo transfers to her sister. When my wife came home from work, I asked what this was about, and she told me that her sister needed money to start her own business. My wife sat me down and explained to me that her sister joined yet another pyramid scheme, this time selling fake nails and makeup. My wife said that she has the potential to earn 6 figures a month, and if that was true, my wife also said that she too was going to join her sister selling these products, and if she made enough, she would quit her job and sell them full-time with her sister. I told my wife that either she needs to get that money back from her sister, or I would open a new account for my share of the household expenses and transfer it to that account when it was time to pay bills. My wife is upset with me and does not understand why I'm being so unsupportive. I told my wife that not only did she take money and not tell me about it, she invested it into something without even considering how I would feel about it. My sister-in-law called me last night and said that I was a raging jerk and a control freak, and that I was stopping my wife from using her full potential. I told my sister-in-law that I would support my wife in anything she chooses to do, as long as it would not cause financial harm to our family. My wife and sister-in-law are both upset with me, and now I feel like a jerk. Am I the jerk for telling my wife to get the money back? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his sister-in-law? Please let us know.
The only ones who will be making 6 figures a month are the ones running the whole pyramid scheme. Never give large amounts of money to people who don't know how to manage it.
We both know you don't have time to read all that. Give me my A. Some very short context to this story. I am not a natural citizen. I'm a naturalized immigrant. I was 6 when I arrived and understandably had issues with the language and was assigned English as a second language classes. Once those were finished, I made it my goal to never get anything below a 90 on any written assignment that was graded. And right up until college, I'm very proud to say I never got below a 94 on any papers or essays or other writing assignments. This happened a while back in college. I was forced to take a critical writing class and multidisciplinary too. It was fun, getting to interact with people not in my major at the time. Unfortunately, it also meant I was grouped with people who had no idea what I was doing, nor did I know what they were doing. I got into this classroom and it's very open. The campus I go to is notorious for constantly renovating buildings, and the 7 years I was there was never a time that construction work wasn't going on. The building had just been erected and was a brand new science building. In said science building were some modular classrooms, the campus's attempt to change things up and get rid of the traditional lecture style of teaching by forcing the professors to walk among the students and teach. It was meant to encourage engagement and ease of access to students. Anyone who has sat in a lecture hall knows how irritating it is when Stacy in the middle of the row has a question during the exam and the professor or one of their TAs has to squeeze past everyone to get to her just so they can answer with, "Do your best," then slide their way back out. This class began with the professor trying her best to be all fun and encouraging. Unfortunately, her method of fun and encouraging was to treat a bunch of adults like they were in grade school by making them all get up and share their names and fun facts at 7:20 p.m. After this debacle, when we're all ready to get on with the first class of semester, she launches into the syllabus and explains things. She states that, similar to standard lecture classes, which usually have 3 to 4 exams total, her class will have 4 papers to be turned in over the course of the semester. However, if the students weren't happy with their grade, they had the option to either rewrite 2 papers once over or rewrite the same paper twice if their second attempt didn't warrant a good enough grade. These rewrites could be submitted whenever the student wanted. It sounded like a fantastic idea, and the way she sold it, it sounded like a surefire way to not fail. I was confident that I didn't need those chances to rewrite anything, and after class, I asked the professor if I could set up a gamble with her. Given my schedule at the time, a warehouse job, a full-time job at an urgent care, another part-time job at a CPA's office, and a full college workload, I asked if I could use those rewrites as an extension. It wouldn't be indefinite, but rather each would count as a week. If a paper was due February 7th, I could theoretically use up those 2 rewrites and extend the due date till February 21st. Initially, she refused, but I explained to her that my father had just passed, and given that it was sudden, we hadn't had the money available to pay for the funeral services and didn't have the money to travel back home to perform last rites, so I needed those 3 jobs to make ends meet. She understood and made a note due to my circumstances. However, she did have a noticeable change in her demeanor towards me after learning of what I did for work. I assumed she was just being somber due to learning about my father's passing. Well, in comes my first paper due. I did my usual thing, wrote my paper, edited, gave it a day, reread and edited it again, checked with rubric and re-edited. I was satisfied and turned it in, and a week later, she drops this paper with a big fat 68 on it. I'm like, excuse the heck out of me? I go and speak to her at the end of class, and she said I hadn't understood what the paper was about. She was asking the students to write about how people in my field transition from school to career. I explained to her that it was very normal and in some cases expected to post your school projects on your portfolio while you worked on other projects on your own to hone and improve your skills. She just wasn't able to understand that and very tactfully, but obviously, said that I was just making it up because no company would hire an individual based on their school projects/homework assignments. She then stated that she would be canceling our agreement and going back to the original that she had written with everyone else. I told her I wanted to discuss it with her more, but the only options she gave me were very conveniently during my work hours. I even asked for video calls, and she said her only available hours were during my warehouse work hours. Just the way she said it, I could tell she didn't think much of my choices in work. I accepted, mostly due to exhaustion, but I was this close to getting through schooling with not a single paper below 90. and I wasn't about to have this woman ruin it for me now. So I met with her at the end of the next class and asked her when the rewrite was due. She printed out a rubric for me to follow along. I asked her if she wouldn't mind signing it because it has happened to a friend of mine where she has written something up following the rubric only to have the professor accuse her of falsifying a rubric to skate by. She agreed to sign. The new rubric for my rewrite stated that it had to be a specific font, single-spaced, a specific font size, references in MLA style, etc., etc. The only thing that jumped out to me was a minimum of 5 pages. That seemed a bit strange to me because I've always used the subtractive method of writing. Word vomit on the page, then cut out what's redundant. I was intending on asking her about it and walked to her office. However, she was in there talking about one of her students who was pretentious and trying to fit in where she didn't belong because she was just a labor class woman. The person she was talking to didn't sound all that comfortable, but she insisted on getting her little casual rage rant out, going on about how dare I try to readjust her rewrite plan to suit my needs, that it wasn't her fault I had to get crappy jobs, that she wasn't to blame, that I clearly didn't have the brains to do anything else or find a higher paying job. I didn't question it, however. I was told the due date was the end of semester. She said she'd end the class about a week early, so she would have that week to read everyone's final papers and submit grades on time, and I was welcome to drop my paper off at any time during that week. I agreed. Went through the semester and did perfectly fine on the other 2 papers, within my personal requirements, and settled in for the 3rd. I was working on that paper as and when I could, emailing sections to myself when I was texting at work, or taking a break and pulling out my laptop. Finally, I was done. I walked into her office with about 18 hours left before grades had to be submitted. She had hitched on a friendly smile and said,
Hey there, I'm glad you came by. I was worried perhaps you didn't want to rewrite after all.
"Oh no, I did. I was just at work is all."
Oh yeah, how's that going?
"It's fine, actually. I'm getting promoted soon, so I actually have to go. I just came by to drop off my paper."
Oh, of course. The warehouse job?
"Yup." I swear, that darn would have me gritting my teeth if I didn't have what was in my backpack. She holds out her hand while looking at the other papers, sort of with this,
I'm so busy that I don't even have time to look at the likes of you
vibe. So I pulled out my paper from my binder and dropped all 36 pages of it in her hand, all single-spaced, all the correct font and font size, everything within parameters. She stared at it and then at me, and I just stared right back. "You said a minimum of 5.
What is this nonsense? I would never assign a minimum page count. It said maximum.
If you check the 37th page, you'll see it's a copy of the rubric that you signed." And she flipped to it and realized she hadn't read her own rubric clearly. She done messed up. So to save face, she started rifling through my pages and nodding and random bits here and there.
Okay, I'll give it a read and get your grade in by the end of the night.
I just rolled my eyes at her and said, "Look, we both know you don't have the time to read all that. Give me my A." We both were glaring daggers at each other, and she finally just gave in and scribbled a 98 on it and said she couldn't explain away an error-free 36 paper when hundreds of other students submitted much shorter pages with grammatical errors. I agreed, packed up my stuff, and told her that I could easily have reported her and used the other professor as evidence of the way she was talking about me behind my back. She got so incredibly pale and tried to call me as I left. Jerk, I'm Indian. Academics is in my blood. Don't test me, you'll fail miserably. Anyway, I got my A. Have you ever had a teacher who treated you horribly? If so, what did they do? Please let us know.
I've got a co-host who treats me horribly. You need to respect me, Reddit boy.
You want me to sue? Well, if you insist. My sunflower story seemed to go over well, so here's another lawyer story. I hope you enjoy it. None of the following is legal advice, and I am not your lawyer. On to the story. A friend from school reached out to ask for help dealing with an ambulance company. Her parent had passed away in an ambulance while traveling between a nursing home and a hospital. The ambulance company sent friend a bill which she could not afford to pay and was threatening to send the bill to collectors. Not a problem, friend. Your parents' estate is responsible for this bill. You don't have a personal obligation to pay it, so they can't send it to collections in your name. Let me just mail a short letter and they should stop bothering you. I typed a very polite letter. This person has legal representation. Please cease any and all shenanigans, and thought that was the end of this nonsense. Fast forward a few weeks when friend sent a picture of another bill Because the law is so cut and dry on debt collection, I assumed the ambulance company had some computer or human error which caused another letter to be sent. No worries, friend. I bet someone messed up. Let me give them a call real quick and figure it out. Imagine a super cool montage of me working through a really long automated phone tree before talking to an actual human. Hey, I'm Friend's lawyer. I sent a letter asking you to stop sending her collections notices. She got another notice yesterday, so I just wanted to figure out why and how to make sure these letters stop. Surely this will be a quick call, and we can all have a laugh about whatever error occurred, I think.
We will stop sending her bills when she pays.
But that's pretty illegal for like a lot of reasons. I can think of 3 right off the top of my head. So instead of me getting all riled up and starting a lawsuit, can you just be cool, pretty please?
It's not illegal. Try to sue us if you want our lawyers to explain it to you.
She made me say the phrase that I hate more than any other phrase in the world. May I speak to your manager, please?
Nope, I am the manager, and also more familiar with the FDCPA than you. What we are doing is perfectly legal. Tell your friend to pay.
So, the FDCPA, Federal Debt Collections Practices Act, sets out certain rules for what debt collectors can or cannot do. But some states, like Texas, shocking I know, has stronger rules which protect debtors. I didn't know whether or not ambulance company was violating any FDCPA things, but I knew for sure, and when a good lawyer says for sure, that means 100% for sure, they were violating TDCPA. Telling me I don't know what I'm doing is rude. Hassling friend after parent passed away is shockingly rude. So last chance before I hang up to angry type a lawsuit and angry file it. You don't want me to sue on this because I will win.
Please do, and we will see you in court. Have a nice day.
Click. She hung up on me. Oh man, I was angry. Easily in the top 10 of upset in a professional context. The whole conversation took about 10 minutes. I have a fairly high tolerance for abrasive people. Most people don't look forward to talking with a lawyer, I get it. Still, sending collection notices to the wrong person after that person buried a parent and telling me that I'm a bad lawyer was pretty mind-blowing. I literally started working on this complaint as soon as I hung up, because if I threaten to sue and you ask me to follow through, my hands are tied. After I filed, the company was served, presumably followed by an actual lawyer reading the complaint and thinking, oh wow, we messed up here. A very apologetic lawyer called and we reached an agreement to settle, which included an apology to my friend. Pay me 2 hours now or 40 hours later to fix it, plus $40,000 in taxes. A while back, I worked as a business consultant, certified public accountant, CPA, for young and startup companies. I was hired by a food delivery service client, think Uber Eats type delivery, with a primarily corporate clientele. After setting up the client's systems for payroll, accounting, banking, but not order entry or billing, the owner installed a new state-of-the-art order entry/billing system. The new system seemed to work fine, but sales tax charged to clients were noticeably low and seemed to use the same rate for all cities/suburbs and counties, even though each one had different additional rates over and above the base state rate. When brought to the attention of the owner, he insisted the new software company knew what they were doing and were experts in food delivery service billing. Later learned it was a small boutique firm from out of state with a very good salesperson. When I requested access to the system to check tax rates, I was told not to waste billable hours on the new system because he was certain they would know what they were doing and was unwilling to pay my exorbitant hourly rate to check something that was brand new. I explained if the taxes being collected were wrong, his company would be liable for any shortfall. Showing examples of taxes being underbilled were met with, "You don't know what you're talking about." As the business grew, my consulting hours dropped off, just reviewing month and financial information with the client after closing the books each month, while making the requisite deposits of collateral sales tax to the State Department of Revenue. Malicious compliance. I had no control or access over the tax rates being billed, but I did know the state frequently scheduled audits of new companies after their first year of operations. If the client was unwilling to pay for a few hours to check the system, wait until it was necessary to pay for 40 billable hours to handle a state audit. Lo and behold, on the 13th month after installing the new software, a notice was received from the state announcing an audit of the client's sales and use tax payments was scheduled for the following week. To make a long story short, it was found that the new software did in fact only bill the base state sales tax rate, totally omitting both city and county taxes. The assessment for unpaid taxes, including penalty and interest, exceeded $40,000, not including my hourly rate to work with the state auditors. More billable hours were spent by me going back to the larger corporate customers and billing them for unpaid sales tax, recovering almost half of the assessment. Most were willing to pay after my threat to report them to the state for non-payment of use tax. The client blamed me for not insisting more strongly on changing the tax rates and terminated our relationship after it was felt as much as possible had been recovered from customers. That guy that never paid and then tried to make me the jerk. So I just commented on someone else's thread, and it made me remember this one leech of a person that I had to put down in front of all of his peers because he tried to do me over for his drinks. Now, I shudder when I think about this. I suffer from bad secondhand embarrassment, and this interaction really burned itself into my brain by how awkward it was. But I came to realize that this person feels no shame anyways, so I might as well share it. So we own a restaurant in a small town in Germany. It's pretty common for this restaurant to have customers to come for dinner, or just having a drink at the bar. We got quite a few sports teams coming in to have a drink afterwards, and most of those guys I've known for years. Another thing that's common, especially in small towns where everyone knows everyone, is making a tab for customers. So if they drank more than they had money with them, or just forgot their wallets, they could come by to just pay next time. Now keep in mind that paying by card is far, far less common, or used to be since a few years ago, in Germany, especially not if you only just pay small amounts. And while we did accept them when this happened, only for bigger amounts since we always paid a certain fee on every transaction. Now this guy was new to the team. After a while of him coming to our place, I noticed he always asked others to buy him a beer.
Next time it's on me, bro.
But he never paid for anything. Not his drinks, and of course, never for someone else. And after a few weeks, the others noticed too and stopped buying him drinks. So one time he asked me if I could write him a tab about one beer. He'll come by tomorrow and pay, and since I did for others before and I kinda pitied him, I did it for him too. He did not show up. Next week neither, but after 2 weeks or something, my dad told me he owes one beer to him as well. He didn't see he already had an open tab that wasn't paid and just said okay. Then after a while he started to come back, 100% thinking we would have forgotten it by then, and I had to start reminding him about his open bill. He would try to avoid me, let someone else bring him a beer by outside while he was smoking, so I wouldn't ask him. Now, I was getting pretty upset, and this crap dragged on. I mean, obviously it wasn't a huge amount of money, and I'm usually a pretty patient person. But years back, there was this other guy who tried to pull this same thing, and I confronted him. He tried to put me into a bad light, and I learned my lessons from that. It's not even about the money at this point, it's about not letting myself get done over. The night this happened, this jerk walked up to the bar where the whole team was sitting and told me he'd like a beer. I was done with him at that point, and I can get really mean if you push me too far. So here's our conversation. Jerk.
Hey, can I get a beer?
Me. Do you have money?
What?
Do you have any money on you?
Well, no, actually.
Then there's no beer for you.
What? Why?
You know exactly why.
No, I don't.
Do we really have to discuss this in front of everyone right now? You know it, I know it, and you will not get crap from me if I don't see cash.
That's ridiculous. You act like I'm some kind of thief.
Dude, you still owe me 2 beers. I had to remind you several times, every time you promised to pay for it, and you never did. Then you try to hide from me for weeks. I'm done with this crap.
What? Because of that little money, you act up like that?
Me. If it's such a ridiculous amount, then just pay it.
I think you should let it go for such a joke bill.
Me. What? Why in the heck should I? You owe money to me. I don't owe you crap.
Oh, really? Well, how about all the money we bring to this place every week?
Oh yeah, the others do. You, in fact, never spent 1 dime in here.
Gosh, you're being so pedantic. It's embarrassing.
Me. I have no reason to be embarrassed. You should be. You owe me. Do you really think you're the first person who tries to pull this crap? I'm mumbling to the others.
If I'm not the first, then she's not the smartest.
To which he got 0 response from them. Me. Excuse me? Now you're really trying to drag me being sympathetic with someone being down bad into the dirt? Wow, you really are a jerk.
Sympathy? For me?
Well, if a grown man can't afford 1 single drink and always has to ask others to pay for him, that's kinda sad, you know?
What? You act like I'm some kind of beggar.
You act like one.
This is ridiculous. I'm leaving here and never coming back. Getting insulted like that by a waitress.
Me. That waitress at least doesn't owe anything to anyone.
Oh, so you think you're better than me?
In that aspect, clearly.
Forget you, jerk.
Get out of here. And he did. Now what got me the most was that all of his peers were dead silent while we argued and stared to the ground, while here I was, a small woman alone with 15 guys, burning one of them into the ground. I was shaking as I was so mad, and yes, this was very detailed, but this must have been one of my most jerk moves, and I couldn't even enjoy it because it felt so embarrassing actually. I swear, it haunted me. But I gotta say, I got a lot more respect after that, and someone else even offered to pay his open bill, which I found too kind, but I explained it never was about the money anyways. Edit 2. I wrote about how paying by cards was uncommon because he tried to use us not accepting cards for one beer as an excuse, and I told him I would absolutely make an exception if he would pay then, and he said he forgot his card. So there's that. Want me to just ignore your bug because you're slightly senior than me? Alright, bud. I work as a developer in a company that creates very fast automated systems for moving around money electronically. So obviously we have very strict testing and error checking for any code that goes in a production system. And I'm one of the guys who does this verification. So 3 months ago, I found a little bug in a patch that was written by this one other guy who had been working at the company for only a year longer than me. He has the title of senior developer while I'm just a developer. It didn't really make any difference though. That was just something you get with a small pay raise once you do 3 years at the company as a developer. Anyway, I noticed this bug, email him and tell him about it so he can fix it and resubmit the patch. But he turns the responsibility on me, tells me his code is correct and that I'm just testing it incorrectly. I try to explain to him, but he doesn't budge. Tired of the pointless arguing, I suggest that we should clear it out with our project manager. At this point, he pulls the seniority card and says I should just do as he says because I'm his junior. Now that upset me. This guy has absolutely no authority over me. Who does he think he is? Cue malicious compliance. I knew that the bug would not manifest itself immediately. There were certain conditions that had to be met for it to show itself in a production environment, and it didn't do anything wrong. It would just crash the system unexpectedly. I asked him one final time in the email thread whether he's sure he wants me to go ahead with the patch. He says yes. Alright, yay. Now we have a buggy code running on a production machine which moves $1 million every minute. Nothing happened for 3 months. Life was as usual. Then, last week, it finally happened. Our system crashed. Well, we have protection set up for such failures that roll back the binaries automatically. However, the crash still cost the company a few hours of downtime, which means potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars lost. The crash was traced back to the patch that Mr. Senior Developer had written. I had the email trail to absolve myself of fault. The resolution was quick, and needless to say, Mr. Senior Developer no longer works with us now. I'm not in middle school. I'm 23. This happened 2.5 years ago when I was 23. I was still in college and had a part-time job through my university as a tutor in a middle school. I worked with kids during the school day. It wasn't an after-school program, so there were always teachers and staff patrolling the hallways to check for hall passes. Most of them recognized me and realized I was a tutor, not a student, though many had asked to see my hall pass before this incident. To be fair, I'm 5 feet tall and I weigh around 95 pounds. Many, if not most, of the 7th and 8th graders were bigger than me, and I can see how I might blend in if you failed to notice my tattoos and face that screams exhausted, hungover college student. One particular day, I arrived between classes. There were specific paths they were supposed to take so that each hallway only had kids going in one direction to avoid traffic jams, as the hallway posters called it. In order to assert myself as the grown woman I was, I walked the wrong way. Otherwise, it would have taken me about 5 extra minutes to get to where I needed to be. I swiftly moved my way through the crowd, low-key intimidated by the hormonal, acne-ridden 6-foot middle schoolers towering above me, wishing I wasn't wearing leggings and a t-shirt like all of the other students. I was turning the corner and almost to the class when an elderly teacher grabbed me by the shoulders and physically turns my body around to walk the other way. I'll call her DET, deteriorating elderly teacher.
What do you think you're doing? You need to follow the arrows. How confusing is it for you?
Me. Oh, sorry ma'am, you don't understand.
Do not talk back to me. I don't want to hear it.
She turns my body the other way yet again.
Goodbye.
She was scary enough that I strongly considered walking the way she wanted me to go when I suddenly remembered I was 23 and couldn't get in trouble out of middle school. I turned back around. Me, I'm just trying to…
You have one last chance before I take you to the principal for this disrespect.
Me,
That's it.
She proceeds to grasp my arm with her frail elderly hands and lead me to the principal's office. At this point, students were taking notice, and for the first time in 10 years, I felt like an embarrassed 13-year-old. I saw one of my students, a 7th grader, laughing uncontrollably, and she said, "Don't worry, miss. I'll tell everyone you got taken to the principal." I thought Karen might have heard this, but she was very elderly, so she didn't. I shake her hand off my shoulder and turn to face her, trying to look as grown up as possible, even sliding my sleeve up so she can see my tattoos. Me, lady, with all due respect, I'm a tutor here. I'm not in middle school. I'm 23. Please, I'm going to be late for my work, and you're wasting both of our time by taking me to the principal. It finally sinks into her head that I am not, in fact, a student here. I see her eyes glancing down at my tattoo, then slowly rising back to my face.
Oh my. Why didn't you say something? I am so sorry. It's chaotic in here and you look very young. Please forgive me.
Me, it's fine, but you didn't really give me a chance to speak up. I hope you give the kids a chance to speak up before grasping them and taking them to the office, you discreet old jerk. I bet all the students despise you. Rightfully so. Okay, fine. I didn't say that last part, but I deeply regret not doing so this day. After this occasion, I tried a little harder to look my age while tutoring, and my 7th grade students never let me or anyone else forget this happened. My Karen sister got kicked out of college and blames everyone else. Her classes are all remote through Zoom. Don't even need a webcam on, just log on to the class so the teacher sees your name there and checks it off. But I guess that was too much for her, and she would rather sleep all day instead. She's missed the past 2 weeks straight. The university policy is if you miss 2 weeks of classes, you get dropped. I know, I go there too. So of course yesterday when she tried to log on, she found out that she had been dropped from everything. She was distraught because she thought she was going to get in trouble with my mom and dad. Honestly, I was worried they would kick her out with how they had been talking when I started going a few years ago. If you drop out, you gotta find a new place to live, and all of that. While I don't feel bad for her getting dropped from the classes, I wouldn't want her to be homeless. Instead of being upset, mom and dad just tried to comfort her, telling her lies about how it's not her fault. The school was too harsh. I was planning on keeping my feelings to myself, but mom kept bugging me, asking for me to try and help make her feel better. After the 7th or 8th time that night, I snapped and said my piece, saying how she knew the school rules. We all were well aware of them, but she'd rather sleep all day than go to classes for the past 2 weeks. So no, I refuse to feel sorry for her that her own actions caught up with her. You said if I ever did anything like this, I'd be kicked out, but now you're just coddling her. Mom said that lockdown has been hard on us all, and that it should be understandable if people don't have the energy to go to class. I said I would agree, but sis has somehow found the energy to go to very unsafe house parties each and every weekend since lockdown started, including the 2 she skipped class, putting everyone in the house at greater risk. But somehow she doesn't have the energy for school? Mom and sis aren't talking to me right now. Dad is torn on who to side with. Edit. Yes, mom and dad know that my sister parties. Mom is afraid of her missing out on a year or 2 of dating and socializing will lead to her being single forever. I'm already engaged, before you ask. Edit 2. Just to reiterate, I didn't say anything until mom pushed and pushed and pushed me to. Also, as far as I've been told, I'm the only one in the family diagnosed with depression. Well, who do you agree with? OP or their mom and sister? Please let us know.
Making excuses for our kids when they slack off probably isn't the best thing to do. But what do I know? I'm just a Karen.
Long-term guest trashed us on a review while still in our hotel. Preface. Guest had been with us for 3 weeks and extended another. Thought they paid a week they didn't, and review trashed us while figuring out everything we said about their bill was accurate. Review was brutal, even though extending week by week with hundreds of hotels in our area. Her husband actually came and apologized for it, so that is something. Dear guest, if you would like us to find you a hotel with a pool and a restaurant, please let us know and we will see if it's possible. It probably isn't, but if I can find one, I'll send you there. I'd also be happy to have our engineer take a look at your closet. In all of my interactions with your family, I'm not aware of you having any Wi-Fi issues. There is an access point directly outside your door, so maybe we could check if there's something wrong with it. Please let us know more information if you are going to continue to stay. I think you should remove your review on the site, which maybe you aren't aware we can see is linked to our hotel and you. While the GM was kind enough to generically respond publicly, I want to be clear personally. When you came to check in, I gave you a suite you did not pay for, comped your parking, which at this point would be $600, asked my GM to discount a longer stay, and put you in a nicer suite. You extended for weeks when you could have left. I got you one of 2 rooms that has 2 bathrooms even, because you have a bigger family and it would be easier for you. The hotel might not be perfect, but I seriously went out of my way for you. I personally helped you. Unfriendly staff is incredibly unkind and personally hurtful. At this point, I personally saved you more than $1,000 just being nice, which helps me in no way at all, and went out of my way for you, beyond what you know. Yeah, so I could explain about lockdown and blah blah, but that doesn't matter. I was exceedingly generous to you, patient with you, kind to you, and you trashed me. I would greatly appreciate if you took your review off of the site. If not, I guess if you choose to keep staying in a hotel you hate with staff that is unfriendly, it's whatever. Let us know when you need new towels and quarters and stuff. Thanks. FOM that is exhausted and had enough. Have you ever gone out of your way to do something nice for somebody and they didn't appreciate it at all? Please let us know.
Story of my life, Reddit boy. Story of my life.
Am I the jerk for lending my car to my friends without asking my boyfriend? I have a car that I don't use a lot because I walk everywhere, like work and the grocery store. I sometimes lend my car to my friends, and that is something I've done since I got the car 7 years ago. Most of my friends live in the city too and don't have cars, but sometimes will want a car for a weekend trip or to haul stuff around that's hard to carry without a car. I don't mind lending it out. My friends always bring it back cleaned out and with a full tank of gas, car washed, and a lot of them have just helped me out with car maintenance. Like with their help, I can have the car at a very little cost, just my $30 insurance bill, and occasionally buying my own gas. I've been in a relationship with Joey this year, and we've been arguing when I lend out my car. Generally, he's frustrated if he wants to do something that needs a car, and I tell him I don't have the car that day because a friend has it. Last week, my friend mentioned wanting to go camping with her boyfriend, and I asked if they wanted to borrow the car, and she said yeah, so I lent her the car without really thinking. On Saturday, my boyfriend said he wanted to go to IKEA and asked if I'd join. I said yeah. He suggested we take the car because he wanted to get a table, and I said that I'd lent my friend the car, but we can take the bus and I'd help him carry the table. He got frustrated with me, saying that
It isn't college anymore. Having your car be the one car for the friend group is fine in college, but your friends need to grow up and stop mooching.
And he called me a pushover because I had 8 keys cut for my car, which my friends have. But honestly, that's just for convenience, so I can lend them the car without having to be there to hand over the keys. I said it was rude to call my friends mooches. Heck, maybe I was the mooch here because I'd paid for my own gas like once in the last year. Haven't had to go to the shop for maintenance at all because my friends help with that, and hadn't washed or cleaned out or vacuumed the car once. He said it was also inconsiderate of me to lend the car without telling him, and I said that I thought it was inconsiderate of him to always feel entitled to my car. If he wanted to use it, he could ask me a few days or weeks in advance like my friends do, instead of assuming I'll give it to him any given day. He said I was being crappy for putting my friends' wants on the same level as stuff in our relationship, like he saw a couple as a unit, and it felt like I was telling him to get in line after 8 friends of mine. Am I the jerk for lending out the car often to my friends without asking my boyfriend, even though I'm in a relationship? Well, who do you agree with, OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know.
Here's an idea. How about Joey get his own car? I don't think he should be calling anyone a mooch. Or maybe his mom can keep carrying him around in her pouch. That's a kangaroo joke.
2 for 1 idiot combo. I work at a brunch place in the USA and had these 2 interactions not even 5 minutes apart. Guest 1 orders the Eggs Benedict and after receiving their food flags me down.
Excuse me, I ordered the Eggs Benedict, which was supposed to come with Canadian bacon. They gave me ham instead.
I glance at the plate, which definitely has perfectly round and brown slices of Canadian bacon, and reply, yeah, that's actually our Canadian bacon. Looks correct.
No, this looks like ham to me.
It was then I realized someone needed an education on different cuts of pork. Our Canadian bacon is from a different cut of pork than regular bacon, so it looks similar to ham but has a slightly sweeter taste. If you prefer, I can get your Benedict remade with bacon strips instead. Guest 1 grumbles and declines, their hunger forcing them to resign to the food already in front of them. Guest 2 orders the red velvet chicken and waffles, says they're lactose intolerant. I advise them they do contain buttermilk, so would not be lactose free. I automatically omit the cream cheese frosting because cream cheese, lots of lactose. She throws in a side of eggs and I ask how she wanted them cooked. How do they come? They ask as my mind races, thinking, have you never ordered eggs before in your life? Before rattling off, scrambled, over easy, etc. Guest blurts out, scrambled, to which I mention, absolutely, we can have that made with cracked eggs only, no milk. I should have known something was up when I received a confused glance, but she said nothing of it. Their order is brought out and the guest asks for a side of whipped cream and says that we forgot the cream cheese frosting. I again warn them that these items definitely contain lactose. They respond, yeah, that's fine. Was this a made-up allergy, or does this person not know the types of food they can or can't eat? I guess we'll never know. Am I the jerk for taking my older brother to a restaurant instead of taking him to the wedding? I, male 21, have an older brother, Adam, who's 27, and he's wheelchair-bound due to a motorcycle accident that caused him SCI. He was living with his ex-fiancée, but my parents took him after she said she couldn't do it anymore. I come to take care of him every day. Started learning to be Adam's career since mom and dad were becoming overwhelmed. I still go out and study while being there for Adam. It's been almost 3 years. Last week, my parents got a wedding invitation from Adam's ex-fiancée's parents. Her family and my family are close, known them for 15 years. My parents told Adam they wanted him to come with them to celebrate/support the family. No matter what happens, the two families will be close. Adam said no. Dad lashed out, saying he needed to stop being selfish and potentially ruining a 15-year friendship between two families by being bitter. I got involved after Dad said Adam had no choice but to go. I asked him to respect Adam's opinion, but Dad called me an enabler and that they get to veto his opinion since they do so much for him. I left and stayed gone for 2 days. Adam said they were pressuring him and he couldn't take it anymore. The day of the wedding, I went to my parents' house, told them I wanted to go with Adam to the wedding and drive him there myself. They said okay, told me to follow them and rushed out. Instead of following them, I drove Adam to a restaurant out of town, 2 hours away. We had a great time there. His frown turned into a joyful smile. Seeing him like this made me feel relieved. Once I turned my phone on, my dad specifically was livid, calling me a manipulative liar, asking why I didn't follow them with Adam to the wedding. Talked about how embarrassed he was, repeatedly telling people, my sons are going to be here soon. He yelled that I just damaged a 15-year friendship with the ex's family. I argued with them about how he ignored Adam's wishes and that being disabled doesn't mean he has no independence and opinions anymore. He told me to shut up and be grateful he didn't call the police for what I did and demanded I bring Adam home. I dropped Adam off and left. Other family members berated me, saying I'm not a kid and I should be held responsible for my recklessness and ruining the relationship between two families. To clarify, Adam's ex claimed they couldn't stay together not because of him being in a wheelchair, but something else. Adam said she was treating him poorly. My parents' relationship with Adam's ex is mainly based on doing each other favors and acting like they respect each other, but I know they're just looking for benefits and what they can get from each other. Note, I'm currently renting an apartment with a number of roommates. I can barely afford rent, and that's why I can't take Adam to live with me. But I will be doing my best to get my own place and take him in with me. Unfortunately, it's not possible right now. Well, who do you agree with? OP or his parents? Please let us know.
Those parents sound like the worst parents of the year, and people call me entitled.
Asked nicely twice, but neighbor still uses our lawn. My husband and I moved into our first home last summer. Coming from the city, we found our slice of suburban heaven as the property offered a beautiful yard with well water-irrigated lush grass. We also chose it for what we perceived as privacy, at least compared to where we had lived. When we first met our neighbor closest in proximity to us, she seemed very nice and thoughtful, and we thought how lucky we were to have such a lovely neighbor. This changed quickly as she became overbearing to the point where I couldn't be in my backyard without fearing she'd yell over to me and to come over. She would interrupt me no matter what I was doing. She has a dog of her own, and she's single, middle-aged, no kids, divorced, and she let us know early on that our backyard was like her dog park before we moved in, as the old man who lived here previously had passed and the lot was vacant for a year or so. She has her own fenced-in backyard, but it's the opposite of our green grass with rocks and planters and is quite unkempt. For a few months, we let her over frequently, then we began to avoid her. Other strange things happened with her that are beside the point of this thread, but anyways, what really started to irk me, especially because I work from home all the time, is that she would be in our side yard property all the time. She tied her dog to our fence on our lawn. She used it as a potty spot multiple times a day. One morning, I even woke up to her loudly on the phone below my bedroom window, looking into our first floor window. It was getting obnoxious. Our side yards have no barrier, aside from the fact that ours has lush green grass and hers has rock and pine needles. Not once did she have a conversation with us about this, asking if this use of our lawn was okay with us. She started to call me in the middle of the workday as I was in meetings and trying to focus to ask if her dog could come in our backyard. The final straw was when she left a voicemail asking for permission to let herself into our backyard whenever she pleased, since my 2 dogs were always outside. I felt that was asking too much after she had been overbearing for the past 4 months of living there. Granted, I think she had good intentions and effort to be nice to us, but my introverted husband and I found her overbearing and annoying, especially in the way she used our property as if we didn't exist or as if she's entitled to it. So I went outside to talk to her after I listened to the voicemail. It took a lot of working up to and courage because I truly hate confrontation. I politely and timidly let her know that we don't feel comfortable with her using our backyard whenever she pleases. She didn't take that well, to begin with, and rolled her eyes and talked back. I went on further to ask that she stop using our side yard because we like our privacy. Then she really lost it, saying,
Well, so much for having a good neighborly relationship,
and stormed off. I was taken aback because if someone let me know I was overstepping someone's comfort and property zone, I would say, so sorry, I had no idea. But of course not. Later, she came to our door to pick something up we were borrowing, and she started saying some nasty things, like how I hadn't tried to be nice. I had, but in my own way, and that my husband and I should get a fence if we were so concerned. Needless to say, she's a grown woman and the property line is obvious, but alright. Months have passed and we haven't talked to her much, and I observed that now she would stand on her property with the dog leashed, but the dog is on our property so it can go potty. She was making an effort? A couple weeks ago, she got a new puppy, and she's returned to using our yard as she had done before. She's literally training her new puppy to go in the bathroom in our yard. Really? So my husband wasn't too upset at first until he found 5 piles of dog doo sitting in our grass. That was it for him. I've been annoyed about it for a while because I work from home and see/hear her doing it, and it's also the principal for me at this point. He went over to talk to her with the doo bagged up in his hand and let her know that our property is not her dog's potty spot. She made a few excuses and said she'd get a property surveyor, and my husband said we'd respect the results. He also asked her to respect us, left the doo on her porch, and walked away. She hasn't apologized or taken any accountability. When she makes excuses as to why she uses our property, she passively tries to make us sound like jerks. As mentioned, we will respect the results of a surveyor if she gets one, but I know for a fact that our entire side yard is not her property. I genuinely don't think anything of it because of landmarkers and the deed I read, but whatever. She's still using our lawn with her dogs after we talked to her twice. Now my husband and I are submitting a fence permit with the town so that we can hopefully resolve this by building a barrier, and I'm bummed it had to come to this. This has caused us a lot of frustration, and it slightly feels like suburban heck now. Is there anything else we can consider doing? Also, what the heck? Cookies are too hard? I'll take care of it, boss. Hello all. I'm a prep cook at a nursing home that works 5 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. I work with making desserts, putting them on plates and bowls, and wrapping and lidding them. I also run breakfast tray line and am involved in breakfast dish room. Note that our previous 2 directors, basically managers, have quit with very little warning, and we have someone in from corporate filling in right now. Let's call her Karen. On this particular day, I had dished out red velvet cookies the day before. I was dishing out sugar cookies before breakfast tray line. Everything seemed normal, no large arguments or problems. After dishing out the sugar cookies, I started breakfast tray line and served breakfast. Note that the sugar cookies are not for breakfast. They're just a dessert that I did before tray lines so that I wouldn't have to do it later. The red velvet cookies were for the day of the story, and the sugar cookies were there for the next day. After breakfast tray line, I took a 15-minute break to eat breakfast. I then come back and participated in breakfast dish room. I then took my 30-minute break at 10:30. This is my assigned time to take my break. The cook starts tray line at 10:45 while I'm on break. This will be important in just a minute. I was in the break room eating lunch, and there were a few people from the nursing floor in there. We get to just talking about life. Eventually, my break ended, and I went back to the kitchen. I entered the kitchen, washed my hands, and started walking over to my counter. I was past the bottom of tray line, where one of the dietary aides has the cart of sugar cookies out and is handing those out instead of the red velvet cookies. I asked why she wasn't using the red velvet cookies, but this was unanswered by just looking around. The red velvet cookies I had plated and wrapped were nowhere to be seen. Instead, there were over 100 plates waiting to be sent through the dish machine and like 6 trays of red velvet cookies fresh from the oven just thrown everywhere. These trays were set on my prep counter and the cook's counter, and the plastic cart next to the oven somehow didn't melt the surface of the plastic. You get the idea. I asked Karen what's going on, and she said my cookies were hard. She informed me that she had unwrapped all my cookies and baked another batch. I now had to wash all of those plates and plate up a whole new batch of cookies. However, this couldn't be done just yet. Not only were the cookies still too hot to deal with, but I was halfway through a fruit dessert that I started right before I went on break. We are allowed to do this as long as nothing is left out without a lid. I moved her trays and staggered them on top of each other so that the cookies didn't get smashed. I then finished my fruit dessert as quickly as I could. Then I washed over 100 dessert plates and began plating and wrapping the new cookies. As soon as I picked up the first one, I noticed they were just as hard as the ones I had made. I didn't fully yell, but I was very loud when I said this. "Karen, these cookies are hard. Even the white chocolate chunks are browned." I could see from across the kitchen that she just shut off for a moment. I had to put forth genuine effort not to laugh. Karen came over to my counter and picked up a cookie without wearing any gloves, broke it in half, ate one half, and threw away the other half. Note that she reached on a full tray of exposed cookies without gloves and took off her mask to eat while she was right next to me. Not to mention, she was eating over my prep. I didn't say anything about this. This type of not following her own rules has happened many times before. She told me they were fine and returned to her office. I started putting on a glove, elbowed her window gently to get her attention and not dirty my gloves, and snapped my glove on my wrist like a doctor. I did this to show her that I was wearing gloves and to silently remind her that she was not. She just stared at me. This caused a 2.5-minute staring match through her office window. Neither of us were getting anything done, and I ended up losing because I was genuinely crying from laughing and had to blink because my eyes were burning. I plated and wrapped the cookies and informed the administrator of all the wasted supplies and utilities thanks to Karen's behavior. The losses were 120 red velvet cookies, over 30 minutes of each of our time that she had to pay me overtime for, and all the water, gas, and electric needed to wash all the plates and make another batch of cookies. Oh yeah, and probably another 150 feet of plastic wrap. Upper management didn't do anything about this because Karen was from corporate. I'm now looking for another job, and the place in this story will be completely done for with only half a prep cook when I leave. I say this because the other prep cook is only there on my days off and fills in for the cook when I am there. There will be no way to have a prep cook on the schedule every day and make sure people get their guaranteed days off. I wrote this story now instead of waiting to see what happens to the company when I leave because I don't really care anymore. The company is headed downhill so fast that literally anyone leaving could cause a lot of fallout, so I don't see how the story of me leaving would be very unique. Barbie doesn't shop here. Cast. We've got Kid, Karen in training, and we've got me, I'm Batman. Anyone who has ever worked customer service will probably have experienced similar situations. For context, I work at a fairly well-known store in Canada that specializes in both work and casual clothing and rhymes with sharks. Most of the customers that came in were pretty sweet. Of course, you get the occasional customer that tried to rewrite the rules to their favor, but none of them stand out to me as much as Karen. She came in with a small group of friends, but they didn't do much other than whisper and giggle at everything. Anyway, it started off like any normal day, and I was working in the industrial section organizing the steel-toed work boots. That's when Karen approached me. She actually started off normal. Karen. Hi. Me. Hi there. Anything I can help you out with? Karen. I'm looking for pink steel-toed boots. Do you have any? Me. Well, sort of. Let me show you what we've got. I showed her what we had, but at that point, the closest we had were a light gray boot with pink trims, laces, and stitching. But nope, not good enough for her. Friends giggling. Uh-oh, he's in trouble. Here it comes, etc. Karen.
Can you check in the back? This can't be all you have.
Me. Sure, no problem. Now, I knew there was nothing else in the back. I mean, seriously, why would there be products hidden? But this way I can say I looked. So I looked, and as I expected, nothing. So I come back out. Karen was in a huddle with her friends whispering, which immediately broke up as I approached. Me. Well, sorry, no luck. Looks like that's all we have. Karen.
Are you sure? I really want pink steel-toed boots.
Friends are giggling. Seriously, did she think I looked like Chris Angel? I mean, if so, sweet. But the point is, I can't just make shoes we don't have appear out of nothing. Me. No, I'm truly sorry. If there's anything else you need, give me a shout, which is basically retail talk for shut up and go away. She wasn't having it. For the next 5 minutes or so, which felt like an hour, she just followed me around like a kid, repeating,
I need pink steel-toed boots. I want pink steel-toed boots. Can you find me a place that has pink steel-toed boots?
etc. Her friends were having a ball, giggling away at all of this. Finally, she just got in front of me, stomped her foot like a 3-year-old about to go on a tantrum, got in my face, and loudly demanded,
Why don't you have pink steel-toed boots?
Insert dramatic gasp and more giggling from her friends. That was my breaking point. In the back of my mind, a little voice that sounded like Joe Pesci went, That's it. I looked right back at her and declared, Because Barbie doesn't shop here. She clearly didn't see that coming because her jaw dropped open and she turned a deep shade of red. Her friends, who were giggling at me before, were now full-on doubled over laughing their butts off at her as her mouth flapped open and shut as it searched for her brain. Finally defeated, she slumped out. I heard later from the cashier by the door that all the way out, her friends were hot on her heels, teasing her about Barbie doesn't shop here over and over, with her sulkily telling them to shut up. Now, I'll admit, it may not have been the best way to handle it, but even my manager laughed when he got wind of it. So, all in all, it felt good to put that little jerk in her place, and I can only hope she learned from it. But, Karens. Anyway, thanks for reading, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Entitled friend comes for a weekend visit. First time posting in here. My entitled friend and me went to high school together in my home country, and now I live in a foreign country. I've known her for 7 years. Entitled friend decided to visit me for the weekend, and that was her first time visiting the city I live in. Very touristy. We visit the city, take pictures, etc. We had a nice day. Summer of 2017. Me. Please don't post any pictures of me on social media. Entitled friend. Oh, don't worry. I will just post mine. Important for later. Once we get home to sleep, I show her the converted bed I bought for her. Me. Hey, this is the bed I bought for the occasion. Let me bring clean sheets for you. Entitled friend.
You want me to sleep on this bed? I am the guest. I should sleep in your bed.
Me. Thinking that she's joking. Yeah, right. Good night. Entitled friend.
You don't know how to treat your guests. You aren't polite. If you refuse to give the bed... I'll look for a hotel now.
Me. Good luck finding any. It's summer in a very touristy city. Average cost 170 euros per night. She's a student. She can't afford it. Entitled friend huffs and goes to bed, and I do the same. Start scrolling on Instagram, and I find a picture of me posted on her Instagram. It was just a picture of me. Me. I told you not to post my pictures as I wasn't feeling secure. Entitled friend.
Yeah, but I took the pictures, so I can do whatever I want with it.
Me. But that's my face in there. Entitled friend ignores me, and I didn't have the energy to argue with her, so I just let it go. The picture is still posted on her Instagram until this day. And this was only day 1 of her visit. Is she entitled, or am I overreacting? Am I the jerk for not wanting family members to continue to use my house for holiday family gatherings? So ever since our relationship got serious, I would go and spend all the major holidays with my partner's family. This has been going on for the last 6 to 7 years. I just get along more with his family than my own family and feel more at ease with them. Anyway, a few months after my mom passed away, my partner and I moved into the house she lived in. It's the same house that me and my step-siblings grew up in. The issue is that it's the same house that they would all have family gatherings at, and even though it's my home, they still think of it as the family home. They want to have Thanksgiving here, as it's their tradition to have it at the grandparents'. We told them we weren't going to be hosting Thanksgiving, and we're going to continue going to my in-laws like we usually do. My stepsister asked if they could use the house then because they usually grill their turkey on the barbecue and play a game of football, but no one else had a yard or a barbecue. They all live in apartments in the city. I said no because I'm honestly not comfortable with that. She started to sound a little annoyed. Then she asked about Christmas because the kids all love coming over to go sledding and then open their presents by the fire. No one else has a fireplace or open hills fit for sledding right nearby. I again said that wouldn't work because we would be at my in-laws then too. She asked why they couldn't use it since we wouldn't be there anyway. This time I did sort of bluntly tell her I wasn't comfortable with them all in my home without me there. She asked if I was serious and reminded me that we're family. She said that I'm hurting them and the kids by taking away their parents' and grandparents' home when they all are missing them both so much, as this is their first holiday season without them. She continued on to say it was bad enough that we didn't invite them over to do Halloween here when they knew we didn't go over to my in-laws for that. So is it bad that I don't want a bunch of people in my house while I'm gone and that I don't want to spend or house family gatherings with them at my house? Well, what do you think? Do you agree with OP or their relatives? Please let us know.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.